Long Island Bigfoot, good to have you back. All right, Grant Cameron, everybody. We got the super chat open. It's a great way to support what we do. Almost forgot that because otherwise my lips wouldn't be matching my voice. And, yeah. All right. Farmer Robert, good to have you here. Thank you. And let's put out that final tweet here, Grant. There we go, and we got 10 seconds. And hopefully this week we'll have some news on our brand new store coming up here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's get this thing going right now. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. If you wish to listen to our archives, guess what? They are free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Tonight, we have one of my favorite guests. As author, researcher, writer Grant Cameron rejoins us to talk about his brand new book, The Portals and UFOs of Mount Shasta. Grant, to me, is one of the top people in this industry. Not only is Grant a hero and mentor of mine, but he's respected all around the community and the world with people he talks to and associates with. One thing I love about Grant is the fact that unlike 98% of all other researchers out there, Grant doesn't conduct anything by opinion. He lets his research and the evidence lead the way, no matter how zany or crazy the idea or thoughts may be. That's where he goes. And we're here to glad to have Grant back on tonight's show. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Mr. Grant Cameron, always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio. How are you?
Well, I'm just doing fantastic. Happy Thanksgiving to you.
It was a good Thanksgiving weekend. Thank you for asking, my fellow Canadian. And, you know, I spent it out in the forest. I found some wild horses, took my dad out in the forest. He came up visiting, and that's why I couldn't make your panel on the weekend, because I got a surprise visit from my dad. And so we went out in the forest and cut down a couple of trees and then went looking for some wild horses, which we found 7 of them. 7 of them grazing in a big field. It was gorgeous.
Wow. Beautiful. You saw my picture of my horse where I went horseback riding with my Canadian cowboy toque. And we were in the big famous Falcon Lake sighting.
I heard.
We flew in from Toronto, and I saddled up on a horse for the first time, and away we went.
Now, I do have to ask, because you did look like a Canadian Lone Ranger, even though you weren't wearing the raccoon eyes. You know, what was that like, kind of recreating the steps of Stefan Mikulik at Falcon Lake?
Yeah, it's kind of thrilling. I've been here like my whole life. I had the experience in '76 where I was going to jump on this object. It was sitting on this bridge. I was close enough to jump on it. And I remember it in '76. I remember, Mikulik got burned. I could get burned here, but I figured, no, I'm going to touch this thing. I was that close. And so we've always known about it, but I've never been to the site. And when we were at the site, the guy that was doing the tour, he owns the Falcon Lake ranch right on the current Transcanada Highway. He said definitely less than 1,000 people have ever been to the site. So I felt pretty honored to get in there because it's 40 minutes by horseback in there. And we trotted in there, and we did pretty good for the horses until Mark McNabb, who was doing the filming, wanted to get off the horses and get a shot as we were going by. He was, down in the forest, and we went by with the horses. And so we stopped the horses, and then I didn't realize this. They started eating the trees beside us then, and then they sort of got turned around, and they decided, okay, it's time to go home. And it's like, first time on a horse, it was like, good luck trying to turn this thing around. So luckily there was two people helping run this tour. They got our horses sort of going the right direction again. But it was quite an honor to go in there and actually see the thing. And then I grabbed a bunch of pieces because, as you know, they actually did a coin. It was a $20 silver coin. And I remember when it came out, my sister bought one. She's sort of like a hoarder. She buys everything. And so I said, I'm not paying no $125 for some stupid $20 coin. And at one point it was selling for $1,800. Now you can get it on sale. You can get it for about $1,000, but it sold out in about an hour and a half. And all these coins. So I knew this was a famous sighting. And what I did when I got in there is we were on the actual, it was like maybe a rock that's maybe 30 feet by 30 feet. And this is where this thing landed. And parts of the surface of the thing were cracking and coming off. So I grabbed a bunch. Some other people were grabbing pieces of the rock. But I've got about 15. So I figured, if they get $125 for a coin, I can give you an actual piece of the rock that this UFO was sitting on, $125, except it doesn't glow in the dark. The $20 gold coin actually glows in the dark. But I have a bunch of pieces. So I was happy. I got to see the site. I got to go on my first horseback ride, and I got to get a bunch of pieces that actually, I'm sure this thing had tripods on it where there was hovering above the ground, but I've got pieces that may actually have been right under the foot of one of the tripods if it was sitting on something. So it was pretty thrilling to do. And then we also did we went to Carmen, and that's the first time it happened in 75, 76. And I haven't been back there since 77. I think I went one time to Carmen to talk to Bob Deemer to interview him. But otherwise, I've never been back to Carmen since 1976. So we went back, and I actually, on film, I actually went to the four main sites where I had my four main sightings, and on camera I described that. So that was kind of cool. And then we went to the lights at Woodridge. I don't know if you ever heard about them. There's spook lights out on the track.
Yes.
So we were at, and that was maybe the most exciting. Well, no, I guess you can't beat the Stephen Michalak sighting, but we were there, and we were with Rob Freeman, who has all these camera setups, and he's got 9 different cameras and stuff. And he takes an hour to set this thing up and focus all the cameras and the infrared stuff and like that. So we set up right by this railway track. So this is where these lights are supposed to show up at this railway track, and it's in the middle of nowhere. It's in a bush a mile off the road. And so then the CN train comes through, and it comes through at that point. It's going like 60 miles an hour. And I live at a railway track. I've lived my whole life near like 50 feet from a railway track, and I've never really seen a train moving that fast. And just the power of this thing moving this long 120 cars or whatever, and moving at 60 miles an hour, you just think, wow. So we were right along the railway track, and they were filming as this thing was coming because the light was coming. It was dark, and it was really spooky. And so they got this shot of Rob Freeman in profile as this light comes and goes, shh, and the train goes racing by, and we're about maybe 2 feet from the track on both sides. And of course, the CN figured this was not good. The guys that were in the running the train, I guess there's a lot of COVID suicide type things going on now. So they were really afraid we were going to jump in front of the track. This is what this was all about. So they radioed the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and reported us. So about 15 minutes after the train came, suddenly there's this lights coming, and here comes the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and I'd had them in 76, where I had sort of set them up, getting me involved in the UFO thing. So I said, oh, good, the Royal Canadian Mounted, let's question this guy. So we're all there, and he says, okay, put your IDs on the car, and because you can't touch it, so we're all sticking our IDs on the car, and it was an Aboriginal guy. And then he said, so what are you doing? You were reported by the train. And so we say we're looking at these lights. And he said, oh yeah, I've heard about them. These lights are supposed to sit by the tracks, spook lights. And so we were talking to him, and then he said, turn off the camera. So Mike McNabb turns off the camera, and then he goes in, and he's sitting there, and he's checking all the different IDs, and with his computer or whatever. He comes out, and So he starts talking. And then he, well, yeah, I've heard about him. And we start talking to him. He was there an hour and a half. And then he would get radio because he came by himself. So he's a lone officer out in the middle of nowhere by himself. And so, of course, I guess the dispatch calls him and says, what's going on? What's the status of this call or whatever? And he says, 15 minutes. And then he keeps talking to us. And then they call him back 15 minutes, and he just radios into the mic. 30 more minutes. We were there an hour and a half, and he was asking all these questions.
Nice.
And his kids were fascinated. And they actually got him sort of in profile. And Rob Freeman, this guy's got everything. So he's got he's got all these cameras. Plus, he carries an iPhone on his arm that's taping all the time in case something happens, like voices or something. So we got this whole thing, and he was actually asking me questions. He's saying, what's the deal with these? He said, you got to go out near Brandon because you got the Brandon person today. He said, you got to go out, and he's naming all these reserves around Brandon. And I guess that's where he comes from. And he said, they're always talking about this. What's the thing with the hat? What's the thing with the shadow person with the hat? And I said, oh, that's pretty common. What do you mean? And he wants me to answer what's the thing with the hat. And I said, that is kind of weird. It's like, I always call it the theory of wow. Like, if you got a shadow figure or something like that, like, why does it need to have a hat on? It's like this really weird thing. But I guess the Aboriginals all see this, and it's a big thing. And we were pretty near the end of these guys coming in, so we didn't have time to go out to these reserves. But he was basically encouraging us to go out there, and he said, oh yeah, the tribal leaders, they know about all this kind of stuff. They've got all sorts of stories, and it was fascinating to have this guy for an hour and a half. And he actually said, you got a business card? And then he wanted phone numbers, and he's looking up all our stuff. He wanted to go home and look up all the stuff. So it's kind of fascinating to get a Royal Canadian Mounted Police guy who's there on a call who just opens up and starts telling stories. And he'd never seen it. He'd seen some stuff, but he'd never seen the lights that we were trying to film. But it was an interesting time.
I got to tell you, seeing you on a horse would be just one thing, but working with Rob Freeman's $100,000 camera there, and it would be just incredible. And I got to know Rob in Toronto a little bit, and he works with a good friend of mine named Dan Berg, who lives out in Revelstoke, British Columbia. And Dan's a really, really good guy. And, they both been on this show, and they're out getting evidence. The issue that a lot of people are having these days, Grant, in the UFO field is, are sparkly lights in the sky still worthy of being collected? Are they still evidence? What do they do to prove or disprove anything? Where are you standing as a change of UFO information seems to be ever changing these days?
Yeah, well, that's where I always have the dispute. Well, and of course, I've got the advantage that I was pretty close a couple times in '75, so I got past the sighting thing, because most people are still into the sighting thing, like, let's prove UFOs exist and let's get the evidence because our friends are laughing at us or whatever. And my thing started where I had these sightings, and then I wrote the book and documented all these sightings. And the local publisher basically was the last publisher to look at it, and she said, "You may believe in this kind of stuff. Count me on the among young believers." And I went, this is insane. I couldn't believe it. It was like, what a waste of time. And so all I was interested in then was, what is this? Because, it was no doubt that it was something, because I was pretty close to it, that I just wanted to find out what it was. But a lot of people, and I even talked to Rob about this, I said, so like, what do you do when you get the definitive photo? And he has the one with the one that was taken in BC, the Squamish orb.
Yeah, that was incredible.
And I said, because he was saying most of the stuff is, he can debunk most of the stuff, and he actually had a video that we'd shown him that he debunked it. And I said, nah, that's not the way it you got that wrong. But anyway, it was like I said to him, and I think Mark McNabb agreed with me. I said, well, you get one photograph that's definitive. You've got it already. So why are we still doing the photograph thing? I mean, if you've sort of proved it, it's almost like, to me, it's like the modern world where we need entertainment. It's for a lot of people, it's just entertainment. Or it's like the thing where you get obsessed with the story, where you get obsessed with doing this. And it's like a guy who's got $1 billion. You say, well, are you going to retire? And, well, no. What are you going to do? I'm going to get $2 billion. I'm going to get 4, and I'm going to get 6. And it's like, I was a collector, so I know what this is like. It's like, oh, let's get another one. Like, we're collecting, wild game animals, illegal wild game animals, and we're just going from one to another. And at some point, to me, it's you got to stop looking at the sighting stuff and say, okay, this thing's for real. This thing's here. Okay, now what the hell's going on? Because people do the same thing with the government. So they'll say, we want the government to disclose. Okay, so the government stands up and says, okay, here's Nimitz photographs, videos. They're unidentified. They basically confirm publicly that they're identified. Okay, so you have disclosure. And then what's everybody want? They want more. Okay, now tell us about this. Tell us about that. And it's sort of like it's you got to get to the point where you get to trying to figure out what is the phenomena, that the phenomena is real. But we're still stuck in this idea of trying to prove the phenomena is real. And that on the weekend we had the panels. We had James Fox on there, and James even brought this up about his thing that people were complaining. It's the same old stories, and that's basically true. So he said he wasn't really making it for the UFO community; he's making it for the public, almost like the New York Times article.
Yeah,
that
But isn't that just and with all due respect to James Fox, okay? Is that not a cop-out of today's ufology? We're not doing it for the UFO world. We're doing this for the public to educate them on what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what they're doing, that's fine, because it is. I mean, he's got a million hits or whatever, and he's getting to audiences like he was on the day before. He was on with Nicole and I. He was on Tucker Carlson right after Trump. So Trump spoke. And then he was the next guy up. So, I mean, you get that thing where he's got a voice that you and I may not have. So that's fine. But to me, everybody's doing what they're doing. But to me, the key is to figure out what's behind this thing. Because you can do this. We've done it for 73 years. We've run around and we've done sightings, and it's almost like goes back to the same old thing. Like we're going to start a new program. We're going to gather all these sightings. Even like I was having a conversation with this guy this afternoon on this platform where they're doing the photographs. Like you have the Sky Hub, and then you have TTSA's got their app, and this guy Rob Freeman is the guy that built the app for TTSA. So I was talking to another guy who's got a platform, and he was dealing with TTSA. And he's talking about going to the ultraviolet. And he said, this guy films aliens in ultraviolet. We got to go to ultraviolet. And again, it's so he's starting this thing, and we're getting all this data. So we do it over and over again. Okay, now let's study UFOs. Let's gather all the data. And everybody spends all this money, and we're gathering all the data together. And you can have all the data. We've got, how many millions of sightings have we got? And sooner or later, you got to stop the sighting stuff, and you got to move on. Except if you really don't believe, then they're trying to convince people. But I could care less. I mean, I know what to tell people when they don't believe. I really don't care. They know that if they try to argue with me, I'll talk till they fall over. It doesn't. But to me, it's like the big thing is if you're talking to experiencers, or if you're talking about ultimate reality, how does this work? How does the mind work? How does consciousness work? That's where I am. I sort of get depressed when I see the sighting stuff. Now, the Fox thing I found was very interesting, and I bought a copy of it. So I watched it, and it was the theory of wow. So I'm going through, and I'm thinking this thing should be called the theory of wow, because that's the lecture I gave when I was at your conference, and that was this whole idea that in the end, I think that what all this sighting stuff is about, and everything is about, is they ain't doing anything. Because when I saw my first one, it flew in front of the car, I was blown away. So went out there the second night. Second night came right at us the second night, and then made this turn and went off in the northeast. And I was watching this thing fly along, and it was just sort of flying away, and I'm thinking, what is it doing? It's not doing anything. And if you look at all these photographs, like Fox starts with the Kenneth Arnold thing, 9 UFOs. So, like, what are 9 UFOs doing flying over, Mount Rainier? Like, what are they, picking up beer? I mean, they need 9 UFOs or whatever. And it's the theory of wow. It's just like, look at this, 9 of them. And then the pilot, 9 of them. And you see all these things. Or why would a UFO, the two of the big cases he has, are the one that James Rigney helped him with in Australia, where the UFO flies and it lands in a schoolyard with 300 kids. And these kids are all there and they're standing around this thing. It doesn't get out, doesn't eat anybody, doesn't do anything, just sits there on the ground for a while. All these people report this, then it flies off. Like, what's it doing? It's just getting people to go, wow, I got to tell this story. Or the final one was the South African or the Rhodesian case, 1994, with the school kids, and he does end the documentary very well, where he's got these kids as they're adults and they're talking about remembering back and the messages that were coming in their head, but it was still this awe thing where it was impress people that, these little kids wouldn't lie, and here they are, and this dramatic, these kids describing these visions in their head, but nobody goes to the visions. Nobody goes to like, what is this? Or the idea that the messages are coming through the aliens' eyes. And the one thing I tried to track down was Emily Trim, who's one of those kids, because you get the things, if you get past the sighting stuff and you start picking up all this other stuff. Emily Trim talks about the fact that she's with this other girl. They're on the edge of the schoolyard, and the being is like they could touch it. It's that close. It came right in front of them. It froze them. They were frozen, and then they got these images in their face. And Emily Trim was getting these technological images. They were coming bang, 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 bang in her face, and then the last one was this sort of a giant explosion, which she said doesn't really mean that the world's going to explode. And the girl beside her was getting environmental images. So for many years, I've tried to get a message to Emily Trim, but they're saying, oh, she's stressed out, she can't talk, we're protecting her, or whatever. And the thing was, how fast were the images going in your head? Because if you start to check, you find out this is very common, that Susie Hansen talks about this. The aliens take them underground to a big sort of amphitheater thing. It's 200 to 250 people in the amphitheater, and they're sitting. They show this big screen, and this environmental image goes on the screen, and then another one, and another one, another one, another one, another one. And suddenly she said there was 100 or more per second going on the screen, and they had taught us how to do it, and people were crying. They were all emotional, and then the being comes out and just sort of waves his arm, and everybody stops crying. The emotion goes away, but the image is embedded in their head. And then you take the Bankston healing method. So Bankston healing method is a method, it's supposed to be the Cadillac. It can do cancer stuff. And I took the training. I went to Chicago, took the training. And what you do is you learn to flip these images, 1,000 images in your head at a time. And they're ego images of cars and motorhomes and stuff. Can't be right brain, you want to save the world images. And so you do this thing, you flip it, and what it does, it shuts your left brain down. It gets the healer out of the way, and the energy can flow through, and they can heal anybody. So I'm in this training course, and then I said to Bankston, I said, you didn't invent this thing. This was Merrick. It was a psychic that invented this thing. And at the end of his life, in Bankston's book, Merrick says, I was from Alpha Centauri. I'm an alien from Alpha Centauri, and Bankston's is here to help me bring this to the world. So you get these things where when you get past the sightings and you start looking at these weird things, you realize there's something going on that's very, very important, that they're using this rapid image cycling, and this is how you can heal people, and you can do all sorts of stuff if you learn how to do this. But everybody's onto the sighting thing, and once it gets to what the person experienced in their head or what they think happened or whatever, then it's anecdotal. They just think they were in a ship, or they just think this or whatever. And I say, everybody, it's all belief system. You believe you saw a UFO, you believe you're a skeptic. It's all belief. I mean, it's one person's against another. I think you have to move beyond the sightings. You have to do the sightings, but the sightings just simply show you, yeah, this is for real. And then once you got it for real, then what do you do? Like if you prove the government is covering up, or you prove that UFOs are here and there's extraterrestrials, then what do you do? I mean, and I'm afraid that people are just going to continue to collect sightings.
Mm-hmm. Grant, we got about 40 seconds left. I still haven't decided whether or not I'm going to be watching James Fox's The Phenomena. I heard it is fantastic. It is great. And when we come back from the break, I want to ask you about Harry Reid, okay? The former Nevada senator, okay, who is being, in my opinion, he's the modern-day Paul Hellyer. And I think it's important that we have a discussion about him because you're very, very veteran when it comes to politics, UFOs, and I don't understand Harry Reid's purpose. And that's what I want to get into next with you, my friend, because I think it's a very important topic. Harry's making a lot of claims right now, but the funny part about it is he never made a single claim when he was in office. Grant Cameron is here, everybody, on Spaced Out Radio. We continue with UFO talk and former Nevada Senator Harry Reid, who thinks the U.S. government that he used to work for is now not doing enough about UFOs. On Spaced Out Radio, next. All right, Grant, we're clear. We're still live on YouTube. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I got to get into that with you. That just kind of bugs me. I don't know why it bugs me. It just bugs me.
Let's see what the chat's got to say. What's the chat got to say about Harry Reid?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they're already all my lovely ladies are already hitting on you. Say freaking love Grant, and Grant's this, Grant's that. I heard
Must be the horse pitcher.
It must be.
There you go.
All right. Just people are still rolling on in. We're at 135 people watching live right now, and we're only 30 minutes in.
There you go. That's okay.
Yeah, we're getting up there.
We'll give him a scoop or something. I'll think of a scoop to give him.
We broke our record last week with who was it? Hold on. It was Ronald Moorhead. We finally cracked the elusive 200 mark.
There you go.
Yeah.
Moving on up.
Well, our my social media person, Spookles the Cat, she decided that she was going to make a little competition that if we hit 10,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel by the end of the month, that I would have to eat breakfast during the show. And Grant, I have a real bone to pick with eating breakfast foods for dinner. All right? I do. And I really, as cool as it would be to hit 10,000, it would really suck for me having to eat like bacon and eggs and sausages and hash browns, on camera during the show, so that way, I don't know. It just, the thought just irritates me and scares me.
But 10,000 is not bad, though.
No,
you got to die for something that would.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, no, there's never a reason to eat breakfast for dinner. So at least that's in my opinion. So what do you think about your Jets during free agency here? I was surprised they re-signed Lane.
Yeah, everybody wanted him gone. He's especially next year, he's going to want 10 or 11 million bucks, and most games he doesn't show up. And he can't take it off the boards. You know that he can't pull the puck off the boards. But they got Stastny back, so maybe because and Lenny doesn't want to be here. That's the worst. It's like, I don't really care, what they do, but when the guy doesn't want to be here, like, get him out of here as fast as possible. I mean, it's like, they're not putting me on the first line, and he's whining away. I mean, my goodness. I mean, if you're going to put the puck in the net, but I mean, he's down to like 30 goals or whatever, and we're going to pay this guy like, 10, 12 million bucks to. He's famous here for being the only guy who put the puck in his net. Instead of clearing it around the back of the net, he put it in the net.
Yeah,
like it's just unbelievable.
I hear you.
But whiners you don't want. I mean, because Winnipeg is a place where a lot of people don't want to be, but at least keep your mouth shut if you don't want to play here. I mean, to openly whine and then think we're going to pay you 12 million bucks or whatever he thinks he's going to get next year.
It's ridiculous. Whatever happened to that secondary contract in the NHL? It's like the player goes from their entry-level contract up to 5 to 7 million, and then their next contract is like 9 to 12.
I don't know how they're going to pay for it. I mean, how do you we only got 15,000 seats here. Like how can you put the price, or if they're not going to have anybody in the stands, like how the heck do you pay the bills? It's crazy.
Well, I mean, it just goes to show how much money the owners have put away in escrow, right? Because that's what's going to save them this coming season is the escrow that the players have to pay.
Yeah, but it's gone insane. I mean, and then you get things like Scheifele, who's the top guy, signs a long-term deal. He's making $6 million. Liney's making already more than $6 million, $7 million, and he's going to want 10. And so you're going to have some second-line player who can't score and can't get the puck out of his own end, coughing it up all the time, and then your top guy's making 6. So, of course, he's mad, and he wants more. He wants out, and it's just a bad situation.
Well, Scheifele, they're going to have to renegotiate that contract.
Yeah, exactly. But then everybody else, now you got, Wheeler, who's basically on his last leg. He's making 8, and he's for another 4 or 5 years yet. It's like the salaries have just killed everything.
Well, as long as they continue to be a seat generated revenue The NHL can't sustain those salaries. They can't. But then again, they just added another team. Hold on here, Grant. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Dave Scott in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Reminder to all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight we are talking with Grant Cameron, one of the top UFO researchers and authors in the world. He is a good Canadian kid. We love him up here, willing to drop the gloves with anybody when it comes to either hockey or UFOs. He's a tough guy. I wouldn't mess with him in a corner. He will stick you. He will spear you. He will give you that UFO butt end. Grant, welcome back. Where'd he go? Grant, are you there?
Yeah, thanks. It reminds me of a story. My kid played triple A, and I'm here. Yeah.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we got you.
Yeah. It reminds me of a hockey star. I was 11 years old. We were playing AAA for the Winnipeg Junior Jets. So they would travel around to Alberta and Saskatchewan and Ontario, whatever. And I remember they were 11 years old, and nobody can body check till 12 in Manitoba. So you would play some kids in Ontario, and they could body check at 11. So we heard the story. They'd said, all these little hot shots from Winnipeg, these guys think they're really hot. We're gonna hit them. And I remember they were gonna drive all these kids on the boards, and so they went into the room and they warned the kids. They said, "Oh, you guys don't body checking yet, but you can body check. But no, these guys are gonna body check you. So they're gonna try to slow you down because you're good skaters or whatever." And then the one kid says, "Can we body check too?" And the guy goes, "Yeah." Oh, good. It was like a slaughter. Like kids who were really good on their skates, it didn't matter. They loved it. It was like first time they got the body check.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's no better feeling than that first time you throw a hit and you knock someone on the ice. Oh, it's a good feeling. Very good feeling. Yeah. For some, it's addictive. For others, they get a little afraid. But we're here to talk UFOs, not hockey. Otherwise, we're going to write off this show and end up having an NHL free agency show. But, let's continue on here. One of the beefs that I have right now is a lot of this transparency that seems to be going around. We just touched on James Fox's movie, The Phenomena, which it's the same people with the same stories that we have heard for the last year. No offense to James, because I knew he's had this put together for a long time, waiting for it to be released and everything. Okay, but another one that kind of irks me a little bit, and it's the same irk I have with Canadian former Minister of Defense Paul Hellyer, is that of former Nevada Senator Harry Reid. Now, Harry Reid is all over the place now, talking about how the U.S. government is hiding UFO investigations. The latest one, where we should all be in shock and awe, even though we've known this story for 35-plus years, is the shutting down of the nuclear missile facilities and turning the missiles on, both in the United States and Russia, and we're supposed to go, oh my gosh. But here we are with a man who, at the time when he was a sitting congressman, I believe, or senator, pardon me, I always get confused.
Yeah, he was the head Republican senator in the
Democrat.
Democrat, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here he is now saying, well, the U.S. government should be doing A, B, C, and D. Well, when you were in office, Harry, why didn't your ass get this stuff going? Why weren't you out in the public? Why weren't you challenging other senators and the president himself to getting this out? Is this not a little bit of hypocrisy here, Grant?
Well, that's the way it works in Washington, because I studied the presidents and I studied all that sort of stuff. And it's John Podesta talked about it. It's the absolute toxic issue. Like he would say that when he was talking about it, people say, great, keep talking about it. And he said, well, why don't you had a sighting, why don't you come out? And no, you do the talking for us. And he said there was a pile of people in Washington who are all in favor of this, who had sightings and experiences or whatever, but it's the ultimate toxic issue. It's like, because everybody wants to get reelected. So you don't want to get painted in the corner where you're the crazy guy, whatever. So that's what I think happened is they had this guy goes to, this DIA guy goes to Skinwalker, and Reed was watching all the stuff that was happening with, he was the first guy that Knapp briefed about the Area 51 thing with Lazar and stuff like that. But it's the old idea is you need to get reelected, so you don't want to look like the crazy guy. And I think that is pretty an epidemic in Washington, where people just they're afraid of their reputation, they're afraid of what they're saying. Even if you get the thing where now Dennis Kucinich has come forward, and he's now telling the story pretty openly, except he's still denying the fact that he had a voice in his head. But the same thing happened to him as he was asked it in a presidential debate, and that was the end of his career. I mean, I watched every article that was written about him after that, and he basically had to pull out. And they said the crazy guy who saw the UFO and had a voice in his head. And so that's always their reservation. So you at least got to give Reed credit that he brought these people in and secretly put this money, because I'm pretty sure he was working with John Podesta. John Podesta back in the 1990s was already working with Clinton, and he would do things behind the scenes as well. Like the 1995, he had the executive order that said anything over 25 years has to be released unless you got a really good reason, to try to force out the UFO stuff. And so he was doing these things indirectly, but he wasn't all that vocal as well. I mean, I think that's what it is. It's this, the idea of your reputation, that you're going to look like a crazy guy. You're going to be like Kucinich. They're going to write you off. Or in the Kucinich debate, after the Kucinich debate came, they asked Richardson, who was the energy secretary under Clinton, and he was also the governor of New Mexico. He'd made a couple of statements, and he started to back off as soon as he got on MSNBC. He was asking him, well, that's not really what I'm saying, and he's backing off because it's his reputation on the line. And then they went to Biden. They asked Biden, and he said, what are you kidding? Like, what are you talking about, UFOs? And he's like really snarky about the whole thing. And it's the old cool thing that if you believe it, you basically keep your mouth shut, or you try to work behind the scenes to get some other person out front. And that's what I think Alessandro's doing. He's the guy out front. There's a lot of people behind him. He said there was other people working there. He's the guy that's out front, and they make him, he's retired. So once you're retired, then it doesn't really matter, because you don't have to raise $40 million to rerun for Congress. You don't have to worry about people writing you off, because you're retired. And that's what you see. The same as Jim Semivan didn't start talking until he's retired. Reed didn't start talking until he's retired. Elizondo didn't say anything until he was retired. It's once you're retired, then it sort of opens it up, and then you can come forward. So I think it's basically a pattern that you would think that it's something that everybody wants to talk about, but it's something that really nobody wants to talk about in Washington, or they'll take your budget. For example, so if he had been public about it, he had this $20 million or whatever, and you had this group inside the CIA that believed this was demons. Well, if Reed stands up and says, this is for real or whatever, and we want something done, and I'm putting $20 million in, there's all these people that would walk in and take the money and shut the program down, because they've got more power than Reed in terms of shutting things down and controlling the budgets, because everybody's cutthroat in trying to get the money from the budget.
Right.
And that's what they said when it was shut down, is that another agency grabbed the money from them that they had allocated, and they had to shut the program down.
All right, I want to get your opinion on this. Mark in the chat room is saying, Dave, you're spinning the story in an inaccurate way. Reed got Inouye and Stevens involved in the Senate to look into this. What I'm saying is a lot of the public talk that Reed has done has been outside of office. When he was inside, he was not very public about the information that he wanted. Right. There's I don't see me spinning this in an inaccurate way at all. What do you think, Grant?
Yeah, I think you're right. But I think that we have to keep in mind the pattern is that nobody talks until they're retired. That it's all about status. It's all about being cool and stuff like that. And so he has come forward, but he's even, and I mentioned this before the show started, is he's still not that open. Like he's saying, yeah, we should investigate this stuff, but we don't want the little green men. Don't talk about the little green men. And Fox told us, Nicole and I, on Saturday, that he was afraid that Reed was going to pull his stuff out of the film because of the fact that they put these little kids from Rhodesia on the film with the aliens. And he thought that Reed would be so offended by the fact that they're bringing up the aliens. And that's what you see, the same thing when you see Leslie Kean and Blumenthal. What did they do with the New York Times article? They said, oh, they got this UFO program. We're not saying there's aliens. We're not talking about aliens. And everybody backs off the alien thing because they don't want to look stupid. So we're cool. Let's investigate UFOs. And we get this all the time in ufology, even back years ago. I'd get people, researchers, who would be very skeptical in public about this skeptical and all these crazy people talking about aliens. And then you talk to them in private, and they're talking about aliens and this, and they're totally, as soon as the camera shows up, as soon as the mic is stuck in front of their face, it's like, oh, I'm a skeptic, but I'm an open-minded skeptic. And it's like, that's what you were saying half an hour ago. And that's what people do. They're so into their status. I'm in a position where I don't have to make money on it. And a lot of people are trying to make money on it. They're trying to be balanced. I don't really care about balanced. I'm just going to put out what I get, and I don't need the money. I don't need any finance from anybody or whatever. And so I just say but I'm in a different position in that I don't have to make money. But if you're in the New York Times, you're going to be very hesitant to put aliens into an article when you really can't back it up, or the editor is going to kill the story. Because a lot of editors, I remember talking to Billy Cox, who wrote for Miami, the Florida Today, and now he's with the Herald, with the Tampa Bay Herald, I think. He told me he's been doing blog pieces on UFOs since he had his sightings in he first contacted me when Reagan was in, so that's in the 1980s. And he said, my editor just tolerates what I do. Editor has no interest whatsoever. And that's what the problem that you get is, if you get too far over the line, your editor or your party is going to pull you in, and they're going to reprimand you because you're making everybody else look bad.
I got to make a correction. Mark is telling me that it's Zimbabwe, not Rhodesia.
Zimbabwe. Okay, yeah.
Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
And he basically said, all things holy, I have to make sure. I have to make sure I correct you on that. So shame on you, Grant.
Okay, but it was one country. It's now another. They changed the name of the country.
There you go.
So
okay.
Yeah, so I think it's now Rhodesia, but it was Zimbabwe.
All right. So on a political side, with Harry Reid coming out, to me, as I state right off the top, this is shades of Paul Hellyer up here in Canada, where a lot happened on his watch, especially in his final year as Minister of Defense of Canada, where he claimed he knew nothing of the Falcon Lake incident.
That's right. That's true.
He claimed that he knew, just after he gets out, Shag Harbor happens. And, I remember questioning somebody who was close to Paul about that, and this person actually told Paul that I didn't believe him, and to this date we'll agree to disagree on that. But Paul actually emailed me, and he kind of wrote a little snarky, I don't, along the lines of it, I'm paraphrasing here, I don't know what happened, or I know what's going on, except when my NDA tells me that I don't know what's going on, or something like that.
Yeah. Well, Paul, I can tell the Paul Hellyer story because I did the same thing. Paul Hellyer had, when he was in the government, it's the same thing. Like, because a person's a Secretary of Defense or Minister of Defense or whatever, doesn't mean there's so much stuff going across your desk. That's what he told me. There was UFO stuff, but like sighting report stuff coming across his desk, and he really didn't pay any attention. He really wasn't interested. The only reason he got interested is because somebody had given him the book Day After Roswell, and he was reading it he's got a bunch of cabins north of Toronto, and his son-in-law came and said, what are you reading that garbage for? That's absolute nonsense. He said, why? What do you mean? And he had that's the first time he'd sort of gotten into it. And then his son was doing some contracting, was talking to this 2-star general or whatever, and he said, "Oh, my father's reading this crazy, father-in-law's reading the crazy book," and the general said, "It's all real." And so he phones up the general and says, "What do you mean?" And the general says, "It's all real and more." And then he goes off the deep end. But whereas the Senator Reid, he's very sort of still very, we're only going to talk about UFOs. The rest of it, I think, is all nonsense. There's no truth to this, and don't talk about aliens. Whereas Paul Hellyer went exactly the opposite way. I mean, he's like, everything that everybody said was true, and it was like, this and that, and it was like, he's just repeating stuff that other people are saying. And the only thing that he really got that he had, I think, that was really significant was when we had this one conference in Toronto when they did the citizens hearing, except they had reporters there, and they asked Paul Hellyer, like, "So who do you think of the government knows what's going on?" And this is what I say is, there may be not anybody, because I've been it for 45 years. I have no idea who in the Canadian government is running the show, who knows anything. There's no leaks. There's no stories about this guy told me this or whatever. And so he said, the head of the Privy Council, but you could tell he was sort of guessing. And then it went around another round of questions. And when it came back to Paul, that's when Paul said, "Oh, there was one guy," he said, that knew what was going on. I forgot to tell you. And then he tells this story that he got the phone call from the Air Force officer. I don't know if you heard this story. He got the phone call from the Air Force officer, and he said, the guy who ran the emergency operations in Canada is dying of Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. And he's got a story he needs to get off his chest, and he wants to talk to you. So Paul says, "Yeah, okay, I'll talk to him, whatever." And he doesn't phone the guy. And then the Air Force guy phones him back, and he said, "He's about to go off the cliff. You better talk to him." So he phones up this guy, and this is the head of emergency management, which makes sense, because if something crashes or something happens, you're going to have to do a lot of stuff. Put money in the banks. You're going to have to, control the scene and just cover up the story and whatever. And, because this is things that happen that aren't controlled. And he said, I was made to sign a bunch of papers. I was taken to CIA, made to sign a bunch of papers, and I was told this is all for real. And it was actually at Area 51, and I was inside a craft. I got to sit inside one of the crafts. And I just want you to let you know this is all for real. And so Paul confirmed that story. But when I told, he had, most people don't know, he actually opened the base, St. Paul, Alberta. And this shows that he may not have known what was going on. So it was St. Paul, Alberta. And this is Centennial Project 1967. It was on the front page of every newspaper in Canada, and it said "Top Secret Project Strikes Out." That was the Winnipeg Free Press line. And basically, he had gone up to St. Paul to open that tourist UFO landing base, and he said, "This is not the first time that a UFO's landed. We built a UFO landing base. We had one in 1954, and nothing ever landed. Therefore, UFOs don't exist." So when in the 70s, and this is long before he went public, me and a guy named Arthur Bray from Ottawa were pressuring Paul Hellyer after he got out, and we were saying, "Okay, how did you know? Like, where did you get that information that they'd opened this landing base?" He said 1954. And I'd gone in 77 to interview Wilbert Smith's wife in Ottawa. And I took the newspaper story along, and I showed it to Merle Smith, who was Secretary of the Speaker of the Senate. And I said, "Take a look at this article. Can you read this article? And can you tell me, was Wilbert Smith involved in this?" And she reads it, and she goes, "Yeah, that was Wilbur." And I said, "So what really happened?" And what they had done is they'd opened a base in Suffield, Alberta. Now, how are the aliens? The whole point we were trying to get from Hellyer, I'm trying to pressure him in the 70s. How do the aliens know where to land? If you open this base, how the aliens, somebody had to be in contact with the aliens. And he really said, "Well, I really don't know. I'm looking in the archives. I'm trying to find the files and stuff." And so Mrs. Smith said what happened was Wilbur said he was in contact with an alien by the name of AFA. And if they would stop shooting at the stupid thing, he would get it to land, and they could talk to it. So they opened up the base at Suffield, Alberta. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the military, and the Cabinet of Canada opened up the base. And the agreement was they were going to let AFA land at Suffield, which is a top secret base. It's like Area 51. There's no flyover. It was top secret nerve gas tests and stuff done there, and blew up towns and stuff like that inside this base. And it was an army base. And then she said that everybody agreed. And then Wilbur wanted an agreement that AFA would be allowed to take off with no interference after the communication took place. And they couldn't get an agreement from the cabinet. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police signed off on it, the military signed off, and the cabinet would not sign off on this. So Wilbur said, okay, there's no landing. I'm not landing anything there. And he calls off the landing. So that was the whole thing. They opened the base, and Wilbur was the contact to the aliens, and nothing landed. So Paul Heller tells this story. He says, oh, nothing landed, therefore UFOs don't exist. And then he's telling the story when West pressuring him in the 70s. He says, it was the guy that told me was the guy that was the head RCMP guy on UFOs, and he was hired by the National Defense. He was the UFO expert in the Department of National Defense. So I said, well, what was his name? And then he said, oh, I don't remember his name. And so I actually put on my website, I said, oh, come on, who can believe this? That head UFO guy in the Department of Defense, and Paul Heller doesn't remember his name. And I remember he met me in Washington. He said, Mr. Cameron, can I have a meeting with you and have breakfast with you? And I said, oh, yeah, my father used to fly him around. My father was a pilot for the Department of Transport. So I go, oh, this is an honor, man. I'm going to get to have breakfast with the former Minister of Defense for Canada. He comes down with these, he's 6'6", 6'7". He's got these files under his arm. And he comes and he sits down, and this is how the breakfast starts. He says, Mr. Cameron, I may be many things, but one of them isn't a liar. And I immediately knew it was this thing I put on the website about, this guy couldn't remember. He said, you got to realize what was going on. I was putting the defense stuff together. I was, amalgamating all the forces and stuff like that. And there was all sorts of people. And I didn't even write that speech. I have no idea that speech was written for me. I just read the speech. I don't even remember giving the speech. And you could tell he was really angry with me. And then he gets these files, and he pulls these files out and slams them down on the table. And he said, here, look at there's these files. And he'd gotten these UFO files. And I'm looking through them, and I'm going, these are been released already. These are the same files that we got back in 1978 that Stanton Friedman forced out. They're like the same thing. It's like UFO sightings. They're, just basically citing reports to the government. There's no secret. There's no top secret documents. We don't want those documents. We don't care about the sighting report documents or people writing into the government or whatever. We want what was the government doing? What's the top secret files and stuff like that? And so it was this very confrontational meeting, but I can guarantee people he did not know anything. But he went off the deep end. Once he did know, once he was told by this general it was all real, then every alien story that came down the pike, he was telling it. Whereas Reed is exactly the opposite. Reed is just, UFOs are here. We need to investigate this. There could be a threat to national security. And do not talk about aliens. Do not. Whereas Hellier, it's like aliens this, aliens that. So that's the difference between Hellier and Reed. But Hellier is not afraid. But then he's like me. He's retired. He doesn't really care what people think, and he's putting out what he has. But I think he should check, because some of the stuff that he's putting out is pretty marginal stuff that people are putting out. He's just repeating.
We've got about a minute to go here before we have to go to break at the top of the hour. Grant Cameron is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Grant, do you see any irony with what Reed is saying, that all of this needs to be investigated, but he's not willing to talk aliens and UFOs at the same time?
Well, that's where I start to wonder. I wonder whether they really know anything, because it was the same with Trump. So they said Trump was shown the videos, and he said, yeah, they told me these things are unidentified. And yeah, I don't really know if there's aliens. And that may be the point. We may have had disclosure. They don't have anything. And I go down this, we can do this in the next half hour. I maintain that in a lot of ways, they haven't got the foggiest notion what's going on. There may be 5 guys that know. Majority of politicians and people in the government haven't got the foggiest notion what's going on.
Well, let's combat that when we get back from the break here at the top of the hour, Grant, because we still have to get to your brand new book, which is about Mount Shasta. And, I'm telling you, man. Yeah, portals. I love portals. Love the portals, Grant. I still want to see one of them Zendras. One of these times when you go down to Mount Shasta, once all of this COVID crap is over with, then I'm going to join you, because I got to see one of these Zendras for myself here, my friend. Well, have to.
They don't have very often. In fact, they got really upset at me because I was making it look like there was Zendras there all the time, and people would sign up, and then they would say, well, they don't really happen that much, and then people would say, I want my money back.
Grant, hold on. Spaced Out Radio with Grant Cameron continues in hour 2 next. All right, Grant, I'm just going to run my dogs outside. I'll be right back.
This is the paranormal lawyer, Michael W. Hall. I'd like to invite you to listen in each Sunday night where we're going to open up your eyes to everything strange and paranormal. I will be hosting some great guests with topics that affect us all, such as UFOs, ghosts, and everything paranormal. Let's learn together on Spaced Out Radio Sunday with myself, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at mightymoosebeard.com today.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/spacedoutradio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month. And follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
The SOR Vault is open for business.
All right, Grant, I'm back.
Hey, just to clarify here, Zimbabwe was Rhodesia, formerly Rhodesia. So when it happened, it was Rhodesia. It was 1994.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Big thank you to, let me find you all here. Big thank you to Gorgeous Jules, Big Rob, Kimberly, Lee, Carl, and Cat Chaser for the super chats tonight. Really do appreciate that. Thank you so much for supporting Spaced Out Radio. Thank you. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up or down, your choice. We got 151 people in here. watching away, and thank you so much for tuning us in live. I really do appreciate that. And, yeah, much love to everybody out there, man, especially our fellow Canadians listening in who are just getting off of turkey coma from Thanksgiving dinner, and hopefully you all had a good one. And if you didn't get any turkey, hopefully you got some tacos, because tacos are good for any time.
Tacos.
Love tacos. Love tacos.
Tacos for breakfast. Tacos for breakfast.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll stop at Tim Hortons tomorrow morning and get myself something good.
You got a Tim Hortons in town?
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't you go there when you were here?
I don't remember. I don't remember a Tim Hortons, but if you got a Tim Hortons and a Superstore, that's all you need.
Yep. 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 That's it, man. That's it.
And some wild horses.
Wild horses, yes. And a lot of people asking about my Bigfoot site as we get ready for it to come back from commercial. I'll be heading out there probably on Thursday to do a checkup on the gifting site and take down the trail cam to see if we've caught anything on there that is strange. So that'll happen on Thursday, and we'll keep you in touch with that. Here we go, everyone, with hour number 2 coming on up in about 5 seconds. Hold on, Grant.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. I am Dave Scott, your host, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us. Want to remind you that if you are listening in on our terrestrial affiliates or the digital side on TalkStream Live or Revolution Radio, we do thank you so much for allowing us to earn your listening ears. Remember, you can check out all of our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Edulcorate. Edulcorate is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight we are talking with one of the top researchers in the world when it comes to UFOs and everything strange and weird. Grant Cameron is here, everyone, and, we're getting into some deep, deep talk here regarding what is happening with this whole UFO movement. Is it good for the public? Is it good for the government? Is it good for the military? Who is it good for? And who are the forgotten souls? Grant, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back.
All right. Now, when it comes to UFOs and everything that is going on right now, Grant, you deal with a lot of experiencers. Steve Boucher to be one. He's a gentleman whose band was abducted by aliens while out on tour going across Canada. I look at a lot of these experiencers, Grant, and I think, man, they seem to be the forgotten souls out there of this entire new UFO movement because we are so focused on what the government has to say. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, they are. They absolutely are the forgotten souls. I mean, they are the ones that are actually interacting, and they sort of get left out. There is one group, though, that is dealing with them, and that's Kit Green and Gary Nolan. And that story was told to people know that Chris Bledsoe had given up his DNA and did an MRI, and they went to Burroughs and the same thing. And it was always known that Kit Green and Nolan were apart, but he goes to Jim Peniston. Kit Green, who used to run the Weird Desk at the CIA, was the control officer for the remote viewing program, ran life sciences at the CIA, then left the CIA, and is still under contract, and he was under a contract to study these experiencers, but he's talking to Jim Peniston, and Peniston said, I'm not going to roll over like Burroughs did. What the heck are you doing? What are you guys up to? And he said, are you working on contract? And he said, yeah. And he said there was 8 guys, 8 people involved, and it sounded like it was a defense contract. and they were going to various experiencers, and that at least makes sense. So I give Kit Green credit, the military, whatever, is that an experiencer, say, Boucher or Nancy Tremaine or Nicole or whoever, that if you're an experiencer, you have some sort of contact with the intelligence. So if you want to deal with the intelligence, you've got to ask them, like, how are you in contact? How is this working? And the idea was, if you look at the contactees, the people who've had interactions, there's going to be something different about them, and you're going to be able to figure out how to make contact with the being. So Peniston said, like, what are you doing? And he said, well, we're working on propulsion. And Peniston said, yeah, get out of here. You're not working on propulsion. Don't try to lie to me and that sort of stuff. And he said, well, maybe that's the wrong word. He said, we're trying to figure out how does the phenomena pop in and pop out just as quickly. And that comes to this portal idea. So they were working on this thing, and he basically confirmed, yeah, there's 8 people that money, and it sounded like Bigelow was involved again, and they're working on these experiences. And that makes sense. That if you want to know what's going on, you can look at lights in the sky, but the most you can determine by lights in the sky is, yeah, this is for real. It's probably not our stuff, whatever. And that's the same. I have the same complaint about the metals. So the metals to me is theory of wow. They're just dropping this stuff. Like most people don't know. You hear, the pieces that TTSA is analyzing and stuff with the weird isotopes and stuff like that. And every piece is different. And we found one at the University of Arizona in a file there. And then when we went to the site at Falcon Lake, they had metal there in the rock. There was, in the cracks of the rock, there was silver, 95% pure silver with weird properties. They had it analyzed. It was 5% copper, I think 95% silver. So why are they dropping this metal? And to me, it's like the theory of wow. They just want you to go like, wow, look at these weird isotopes. Like, what's going on? And everybody thinks, oh, we're going to solve the problem. We're going to, analyze this metal, and it's going to be different, and it's going to teach us how to build a flying saucer. And it's like, no, they're just dropping this stuff. They just want you to scratch your head and go, wow. And so that's where this whole thing comes down to dealing with experiencers, is you get past all the stuff that's being dropped and all the theory of wow stuff, and you figure out, like, who's behind this thing and what are they doing here. And we've sort of ignored these people and stuck with the sort of the entertaining type of material, and because people like photographs and stuff like that. But the experiencers are definitely the people that you have to deal with if you want to figure out exactly who this is, because you get to the point where you say, yeah, this is for real. And then the next question is, okay, who is it and why are they here? And the only one that can tell you that are the people that are interacting with them. And there are a bunch of people who are interacting with them and are being told stuff.
What's the truth?
The more I look at it, the less I think it's directly ET. I think it's more interdimensional. I'm more going down the road of what Jacques Vallée said, and I used to think he was a crazy man, that they're here. They appeared after the detonation of the hydrogen bomb, which tends to indicate that everything is one. You get into this whole quantum physics thing. There is only one thing. Everything vibrates like a bell. So when we detonated the atomic bomb, everybody in the universe realized that we had them. And the experiencers have stated that what we do here not only affects this Earth, it affects the entire universe. And so they are here because the kids have got the matches, and they're giving these warnings. 39% of all experiencers see environmental devastation, nuclear war scenarios. They're showing this screen. They're showing this screen on board the ship with all this stuff that basically says you guys are about to, sink the ship here, and we're here to give you a warning. Or they'll say we're here to save the planet. We don't really care about you. That was the message that the Canadians got. This AFA that they were going to land at Suffield. Wilbur Smith, according to Walt Andrews, who used to run MUFON, told me the story, that he said Wilbur had told him the story, was that AFA had told him the whole nuclear thing, stop the nuclear weapons. And people will complain, oh, they're threatening our national security because they're shutting down the nuclear weapons. And it's like, no, you give them the Nobel Prize every year for eternity if they can shut down the nuclear weapons. Like, why would that be a threat? We're the threat with the nuclear weapons. But Smith had said that AFA had said to him, we are here and we will never step in to interfere with what's going on the planet unless there's a nuclear exchange. And in order to save the world, they'll stop a nuclear exchange, and that they could do it, and that to prove they could do it, they could take the moon in front of the entire Earth, split it in half, and put it back together in microseconds to prove that they could stop all the nuclear weapons if people were to detonate it. Other than that, AFA said, we will allow the human race to stew in its own juices. And that I maybe even comes down to, it really doesn't matter whether we wipe ourselves out, because in a reincarnation world, we're coming back whether we're on this planet or another planet, and it's really not here to save us. It's because we have to run our own destiny. They're trying to save the planet. So I think it's much more interdimensional than it is extraterrestrial. And I say when it comes down to it, it's going to be a lot less physical than people think it is. It's going to be a lot more spiritual than people think it is, which is really going to unnerve some people. And it will not have a hint of capitalism. None.
Grant Cameron is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I want to shift topics here, my friend, because you have a brand new book out, Portals and UFOs of Mount Shasta. And Mount Shasta is one of those weird places where a lot of things seem to happen. People claim that doors open on the mountain and UFOs fly in and out. There's stories of these Zendras that go on, Sasquatch sightings, Lemurians, Sumerians, and every alien under the planet Earth seems to come out of Mount Shasta. What is actually going on up there in California?
Well, I think it's what we give it credit for. Like, if you consider a site holy, I think you are, mysterious. I think you can impress energy on that site. The same as the story with why does Skinwalker have so much, weird stuff going on? And one of the theories is that these two tribes that are there were putting curses on each other for hundreds of years. And so what I say is, you can create a house in the physical world, you can create a house in the spiritual world. Whatever is happening, good or bad, in the spiritual world, we're manifesting this stuff. So now I forgot your question.
Just in regards to the portals and UFOs, everything weird around Mount Shasta.
Oh, okay. Okay, so what's happening there? So it's big with Mission Rama. There's a lot of groups, not just Mission Rama. There's a lot of White Brotherhood people showing up there, and everybody has this idea that there's some weird thing going on there. My involvement, I had no interest whatsoever. I mean, I'm not into C5s. I just hate them. I'm not really interested in, bugging the aliens. Come on, fly by, stop what you're doing. We want you to entertain us, fly by and entertain us tonight. So a lot of people go there and they do these meditation things, and Mission Rama people go there all the time. And there was two groups. So I had no interest whatsoever in Mount Shasta. I'd really not even heard of the place. Couldn't have cared less. And this was one of the two times that I got the message from the aliens. So the one I got from Chris Bledsoe, that was the one where I got the music book where Chris Bledsoe said, the Guardians have a message for you, and whatever it is. And and they said the message is in the music. That led to me writing a book about music, about UFOs. And then this one, what happened here was Mount Shasta, every year they have a couple of Mission Rama groups go up there and they do meditation for world peace, which is kind of weird. I mean, you got these Latino people from Mexico and South America and across America, and they're praying for world peace. And the Americans who are causing the military, I mean, they couldn't care less. So it's like, why are these Latino people there trying to save these people? So they appear there and they do these meditations. And so what happened was, I had an assistant, Katerina Castillo, who used to help me edit my books, and she was a legal secretary in Los Angeles. And she said, "Oh, you got to come to Mount Shasta. We're going to meditate for world peace." And it's like, I don't know if I told her, but it was like, I got nothing to get to the mountain and meditate for world peace. She kept bugging me, "Oh, you should come. Ricardo Gonzalez is coming," and stuff. And then finally, she'd helped me a lot with the books. I said, "Okay, Kat, we'll come to Mount Shasta. We'll come." And it's like, "Oh yeah, we're going to go meditate for world peace." And it was like a trip. It's like, "Okay, we're going to go to Mount Shasta, where this place is." And so Desta, my assistant here in Winnipeg, said, "Okay, I'll come along." So we go, and just before it happened, I wrote the book Charlie Red Star about the Carmen thing, and Deza Lawrence, who was a big producer as a studio in Toronto, wanted to do a movie, and she wanted to option the book for a movie, and she said, "I'm doing this movie, and we can't get it financed in Canada because it's about Mission Rama," and it's like, okay, whoever they are, and I couldn't care less. And she said, "Oh, we're trying to do this movie, and they won't finance it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take your story from Carmen, and we're going to have you change you into a reporter." And you're going to be moving around, and then the reporter is going to suddenly discover Mission Rama, and he's going to fly to Peru where they're talking to these aliens and interacting with aliens. And I go, and she said, "You want to read the script?" And I go, "No, not really. I couldn't care less. You pay your fee for the option of the movie. I don't really care about what you're doing, whatever." So I turned down this movie. I couldn't care less what she was doing. And then we go to Mission Rama to do this meditation thing. We're going across the Nevada desert. It's the third day. We're stopping in Reno. Our second day, we're stopping in Reno, and then we're going to make the trip to Mount Shasta from there. And we're going across the desert, and Desta's cell phone rings, and it's Katerina on the other end of the phone. And she says, "Oh, I got a message from Aunt Terrell, who's the alien, who's supposedly at the mountain." And Aunt Terrell's got a message for Grant. And I said to Desta, "Got a message from an alien again?" I said, "Get the message. Exactly what is the message?" And she's reading it because she's a legal secretary. She's reading it like it's coming off a legal paper, and it's like at 12:13, and I got a message from Paula Harris, from Ricardo Gonzalez, and he's got a message from Aunt Terrell that says he knows Grant's coming to the mountain, and he wants Grant to let people know, and there's going to be a program sighting, which is what they call, it's like a C5 on steroids. So it's not just we're going to see a UFO, we're going to do a meditation, see a UFO. The Mission Rama people, they have these people who are called antennas. So you'll get two people, it has to be two people get the message. So the message that two people got when I went there was 9:33 was when this event was going to happen. So they call it a program sighting, where you get a time and a place. And so I go, like, get the message. What exactly is he saying? Get exactly the wording. So we go there, and then I figured, like, oh, my goodness, I'm going to see a Zendra, because I knew they had these Zendra things that the odd time would open. Paula Harris had told the story about being in it twice, whatever, and I go, oh, my God, I'm going to see an alien. I'm going to get the Zendra. And then I'm thinking, well, maybe they should send Katerina, because she's, I'm really not that interested. She should go through the Zendra. And then I'm thinking, no, I'm the one that's been sort of centered for this, because I'm, I can get the word out to a certain number of people. So I go, okay, I'll play the game. So I start the fasting. This is Wednesday. And the event is Saturday night, so I start the fasting thing, and they have all these protocols, and stuff like that. So I go there, and at 9:33 on the Saturday night, exactly when they said, we're sitting there, and this thing starts to flash over my head. And, of course, I'm expecting a Zendra, and it flashes 7 times, 8 times above my head. People are cheering. There's this giant flash. People are cheering, and it's right above my head. I'm thinking, man, this is real egotistical. It looks like it's right over my head. And I'm thinking, no, it can't be. It's got to be over the group. It's not over my head. And then everybody else said, yeah, it was right over your head. And I'm going, like, this is really weird. So it flashed about 8 times, and then Ricardo Gonzalez, who is one of the 2 contactees that goes there, is writing in he's doing automatic writing, which was more impressive than anything I've ever seen. He's got this little book he opens. It's pitch dark. His wife's got a cell phone on this little black book that he's writing in, and his hand is moving 100 miles an hour, and I'm going to Dessa, like he's doing automatic writing. Like, oh my God, he didn't bring the camera. I had the movie camera. I could have filmed this. And she says, no, he's just channeling. And I'm going, no, he's doing automatic. And he's going sideways up the page, and it's just the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And then he starts to read the message. And it was, oh, we knew Grant didn't need to see it. He'll figure this out or whatever. And so then he says to me, so what do you think? And I go, yeah, it was kind of interesting. And in my head, I'm thinking, that's the best you could do is a couple of flashes. Like, come on. I had 75. I was like pretty close. The one time I was so close, they're going to jump on it. And it's like, and then these flashes, it's like I wasn't really impressed at all. And so that was what happened there. But you're talking about the Zendras. I knew that they'd had these Zendra events, and they've had, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 of them have happened there various times, where they'll have a program sighting where they have the time, the place, and then they'll announce that there's going to be a Zendra. So 2014, they announced that the Zendra was going to open, and I think there were 6 antenna people who picked up the fact that there was going to be a Zendra open. So when this happened, these 2 UFOs go flying over top at the time. They go into the bush, and then Ricardo Gonzalez, who's running it, goes with this guy from Mexico. He said, let's go. And they go into the bush, and they're looking for this like a dome of light. It's like looks like a a rainbow, but it's made out of light. And they go and they come back and they find it. It's in the bush. And so Antarel's in the bush. He's in this Zendra. And they come back to Paula, and that's when they say to Paula, okay, Paula, Antarel's in the forest, and he wants you to come. And she just freaks out. She just loses it, and they basically drag her into the forest. And so I knew she'd had this story in 2015. So when I was there in 2017, that's how this book starts. I basically document the Zendras, and I actually take Paula. She said, oh, it happened right over there. I said, really? So I said, can you show me? And I got my movie camera, and we walk into the field, and she's actually standing where this Zendra had opened up, and she's describing 2014, 2015. And then she says to me, she says, oh, yeah, well, this person was in here, Mercedes was in here, and this person, and she's naming all these people, and she says, yeah, they're here. And I go, they're here? And she says, yeah, they're here. Can we go interview them? And then I go to these people, and they were like gardeners and maids, just like ordinary Latino people from all around the place. And I'd say, you were in the Zendra? And they go, yeah, because there was 7. They only allowed 7 people in. You were in there? Yeah. What'd you see? Oh, there was this guy. He was 10 feet tall, and he had a bicycle suit on. He looked really muscular, and he looked very stern. He had this long silver hair. And I go, next person, what'd you see? Oh, there was this alien. He was like 10 feet tall. He was wearing a bicycle suit. He had these sparks coming off his chest, and everybody described the same thing. I was just blown away. I couldn't. And I'm thinking to myself, I didn't know about this after 40 years of doing UFO research. I didn't know about this, and I'm thinking, oh, this is my mission. I am to write a book to tell the English-speaking world about this Mission Rama group and the fact they can open these Zendras, which we call portals. And I thought, this is what I wanted to do. So I wrote the whole book in 2017, and it had to do with Zendras, which are portals. And then I had to go back again because there was 2 groups there. So I wanted to be even. So I went to the second group, which was Enrique Villanueva's group in 2019. I wrote a book on that. And then I said, okay, now we're going to do it. And then this whole thing about the portal came out. I started following Ron Pandolfi, who's the head CIA guy that maybe briefed Trump on UFOs and stuff like that. You really can't tell because he's so, playing games and stuff like that. But his wife started having these broadcasts, these go-to meetings on the internet about portals. And I'm going like, why is this high-level CIA guy in the White House? Why is his wife having these meetings? I'm going, there must be something to this. And so what I do in the book is I gather together all the information. And what I come to the conclusion is if the government has any technology at all, I don't think it's anti-gravity. I don't think they have any of that kind of stuff. They definitely don't. They can't start the craft as far as I know. And the metals aren't teaching them anything. And they basically, the only thing they might have, and I think there's a possibility, they have some sort of portal technology. And I'll give you an example I have in the book. If you, I don't know if you did you interview Pasolka?
I have, but we got to look at getting her back on again here soon.
Yeah, so the main character in her book I met. They call him Tyler D, and I better not use his real name or everybody get all upset. He wasn't secret when I talked to him. I met him at a cottage in Pennsylvania in 2013 with Chris Bledsoe and a bunch of other people, and he was there. And he comes up to me there. And he shows me these photographs. I've told the story a few times. He shows me these photographs, and it's these 2 guys flying through space. It looks like they're in pajamas. They're flying through space. He said, what do you think of this? And I go, I don't know. Look like 2 guys flying through space. And then he shows me this other photograph, and I make a long story short. Show me all these photographs. And then I'm going, I don't know what this is. And then he says, you know where this is? I said, no, I don't know where it is. He said, it's the Hughes Aircraft Building in L.A., the old Hughes Aircraft Building. I go, yeah, whatever. And he said, you know where that was in there? I said, no. He said, the jump room. And then I'm going, really? I've seen those photographs again. and he said, the one with the 2 guys in the pajamas is outside the elevator where this is supposedly happened. And then he shows me it's a long story. He shows me another thing on a car on top of there. And he's sort of indicating, but he doesn't say it's real. He doesn't say it's not real. And he's showing me these photographs. And it's like a couple of years later, I suddenly think to myself, when I'm working on the portal thing, I'm going, why did he show me these photographs? Why would he spend his time showing me these photographs unless he wanted me to think that there was something to this? And why did he go to the Hughes Aircraft Building? I mean, here's this guy. He's the top NASA guy on UFOs, very secretive. Right. He's got 40 patents. The aliens are talking to him. And he's showing me these photographs, which indicates there must be something to this, even though he doesn't really tell me. So what I do is I take all the portal stuff that I got, the latest I've got. I left out a couple of things.
Grant, hold that right there, because we're going to talk portals and everything more about Mount Shasta and Grant Cameron's new book right after this on Spaced Out Radio. Sorry, Grant. Music came on.
No problem. No problem.
Music came on. I can listen to you talk this for hours. Hours.
Yeah, I can see we're coming to near the bottom there, as I had to quickly tell that.
Oh, we'll get into it.
Yeah.
I love Jay King's comment of you in the chat room here. Grant, the Canadian cocaine, Cameron.
There you go.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I love these people. I love these people. They're way too good to me. Way too good to me. I got to tell you, man.
191 close to 200. Tell people to bring their friends in here.
Yeah, we're only 18 away from tying the record. Now, the record was 207. The record was 207. Okay. So we're 189 now. So, they always drop during the commercials. People go and they turn their phones off, or they go to a different app or something like that. So it's always interesting, because as soon as the music comes up at like 5 past or 35 past, all of a sudden it jams right in again. I wonder if we could break the record this quick. I think we could break the record this quick.
I'll put it on Facebook, see what happens here.
Oh, sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Oh. Son of a gun, big dog. That's 3 in a row, dude. Oh, man, you're way too kind. Way too kind, honestly. I don't deserve that. Thank you. Thank you for the super chat. I really don't deserve it, but thank you. I'm just very happy that you enjoy our show on a nightly basis, man. That's it. Thank you so much. I love you for it, and thank you for the support. Wow. Way too kind. Way too kind. Hey, Dirty Filth, how you doing, buddy? Oh, here's a good question from Dirty Filth for you, Grant. Grant Cameron versus Butch Witkowski. Who would they take as their tag team partner? Who are you taking as your tag team partner, Grant?
I don't understand the question.
I'll go in the squared circle with you, man. Talking wrestling.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'll go with you. Me and Grant Cameron will take on any ufologists except Lou Elizondo, because he lifts weights. And he could probably kick both of our asses with one finger.
Yeah.
I got it. Let's.
But can he do it on skates? Can he do it on skates, though?
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Different game on skates.
Oh, man. I don't know. I think if there was paranormal / UFO hockey fights, I don't think Lou would be the first one I take on. I don't think so. No. I don't know. Who would I take on first?
You take on Reed. He's getting kind of.
No. I like. No, I wouldn't take on him. I wouldn't take on Knapp. I want DeLong. DeLong.
There you go.
I want DeLong. Center ice. We'll even call it at the Jets arena there.
In our little arena, the smallest arena in the NHL.
I know. Hey, Johnny Dazzles. Do you is that a nice rink though? Like, I know it's small. It only seats 15-8.
Yeah. It's okay. It's downtown. They wanted downtown, and they never thought they'd get the NHL back, so they just built it for triple
American League,
for the American Hockey League, and you can't expand it. So I don't know what they're gonna do. Now you got the football thing. You got the stadium, $160 million, and there's no games there this year. It's like 8 games a year, and that's bizarre. Where at least the Winnipeg rink, we got junior, and we've got American Hockey League and NHL. They're almost every night they got something going on there. They're making good money.
That's good. I didn't know the WHL team plays there. Now that's the old Kootenay Ice, isn't it? Isn't that who moved?
I'm not sure. They got their own rink now. They went to they built a rink on their own now, 4,000 seats or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a place where, they can still get 7,000 in American hockey, 8,000. So they get some pretty good crowds for.
Right. Very cool. Very cool. All right, my friend, we're just about to come back here. And thank you to Big Dog once again, along with Gorgeous Jules, the lovely Kimberly, Major Lee, Human Carl, and Cat Chaser for the Super Chats tonight, supporting what we do. Thank you to everybody who's given us a thumbs up. Here we go. We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I'm Dave Scott, the guy behind the microphone. You can see me tonight if you're watching on YouTube, but if you're on the radio, I'm not wearing camouflage tonight, so I'm pretty easy to spot. Hey, I want to remind all of you, if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight we are talking portals. What's happening with Mount Shasta? Grant Cameron has a brand new book out. You can find it on Amazon. The Portals and UFOs of Mount Shasta. Beautiful cover with some northern lights going over the trees. Grant, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you.
I love these portals, Grant. And, I think that is the next big topic of what we are going. Once we get through this whole UFO stuff and we get screwed over by the government as per usual, I think portals is the next most fascinating point of this entire phenomena. Why? You look at David Paulides, the work that he does, and I think a lot of these missing people, Grant, doesn't matter whether it's on Shasta or in the major parks or just in any major city where people just vanish. I don't know why, but I got a firm belief that a lot of these people who just vanish have walked through a portal, and on their new timeline, everything's the same. Nothing has changed.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, it's hard to prove it one way or the other. I just know the stories from the people who go through the portal where they come back, where they have these bizarre. You walk through and you step through a door into Ganymede or onto planet Apu, or the one story of Sixto Paz goes in. All these people, the one guy who's interviewed, they were a bunch of people when watching the portal. The Zendra closes up, and they wait for a couple hours. He doesn't come back. They go to sleep. They get up, and 9 hours later, the portal opens. The Zendra opens up again. He comes out, and it's like a Travis Walton thing. He's got a 5-day growth of beard. He's totally disoriented. He's got a sort of a burn thing, if you remember the Close Encounters of the
Hey,
Third
Grant,
Kind.
your phone seems
You'll
to
hear
be
these things
your
with
phone
these
seems to be
portals,
cutting out a little
when
bit.
Close Encounters, when Dreyfus is it?
Yeah, your phone seems to be cutting out a little bit here.
Oh, how's that now?
A little better. You kind of went into
Still?
you kind of went into
Okay,
alien
hang on.
slow
Let me see
motion.
if I can get a better place to.
All right, that's great. Grant Cameron is our guest
Is it better?
tonight on Spaced Out Radio.
Oh.
Sounds a little better.
Okay.
Sounds a little better.
Yeah, I'm going to go outside, see if I can get a better signal there.
Okay.
Hang on. You can talk until I get out there.
I can do that. I've been known to talk a little bit, and we're talking about portals. I'm always curious about these portals because, like I just mentioned, with David Paulides and a lot of the people who go missing, there has to be more than just, human influence on this. And what's happening out at Mount Shasta as well seems to be, almost like some sort of communication portal where these extraterrestrials are calling people in. And this is what Grant's latest book is all about. this gentleman named Ricardo Gonzalez sets up these Zendras. Now, they don't happen every time, but sometimes there's communication that goes along with this. And
so they go in these things, and the reports they give is that they walk into another world, another planet, or you get situations, and that's where you hear these stories. If you've seen the video I had, Ron Pandolfi. So Ron's this top level guy, and he was very upset that I got this, but he put it on his wife's Facebook channel, and I grabbed it, and he said the guy's a thief, and but I got him on camera. It's the only time he's ever been caught on camera. And so you see the parallel between him talking about the portals and these Zendras. So they're on a cruise ship, him and his wife, and this John Sullivan guy who's a key part to this whole story. John Sullivan is supposedly the guy who runs these portals, the government portals or whatever is going on there. And so his wife says to him, she's, "Okay, Footman, what do you say?" And Footman is just sort of like his code name. So he says, he's got his daughter sitting on his lap. She's like 6 years old. And he says, "Well, people have always wondered what it's like to go into the next world. The next time that John," and he looks over at John, and John's cleaning his glasses, and he's looking like, "What are you talking about me?" He said, "Next time John goes to the desert, a number of us in this room will go in to the next world and come back again." And so this is the portal. They talk about this portal thing where they're going in, and you get these reports, but you'll get the same sort of thing in abduction cases, where if you realize that everything is one thing, that you can move from one point in the universe to another. I have the famous Ron Johnson story, who's these abductee in Utah, who tells a story of flying the ship, where they say, "Where do you want to go?" And he said, "I'd like to see the Milky Way from a distance." And in 1 second, he said it was 1 second, they were outside the Milky Way looking back at the Milky Way. So this is the whole idea of, when you get into quantum physics and these kind of things, is the fact that if everything's one, if there's no time and space, then these things are possible. And that's what I say, is that the technology they may have is this idea of portals, because that's what the technology is going to be. It's the old thing where John Wheeler says there's no out there. It's all here. It's all one thing. It's all inside people. And we just have a total misconception of how the universe is actually designed. That's where you got to talk to experiencers, because they'll start telling you this kind of stuff. So that's where Ron Pandolfi says, and I bring this up in the book, where Ron says that TTSA, all this stuff is techno scam. And I used to think, he's just trying to throw people off and stuff like that. And then I start to realize, like, he may be actually right. So what you get is everybody realizes that whoever cracks this thing, it's worth a lot of money. So you get it, and you realize UFOs are real. And then what do you got to do? But you got to get some money. So they're in Congress, and it's like selling a cure for the COVID or cancer or whatever. You think you can solve it, so you go in there and you want to pitch your project, and you need this money. So they've got it. And the other thing I heard today was that the part of this thing with the app and all that sort of stuff is to gather all the material, all the UFO sightings, get it all into one thing with all this AI material, and then sell that to the government. So it all comes down to this money thing. That's where Ron says it's a techno scam, that they went after billionaires like Bombardier, after the guy who owned Church's Chicken, and they went after Firmage, and they, because these billionaire guys can finance, and then they ran out of billionaires, and now they're going after Congress. And it's not that they know it's a scam. Ron says it's a scam. They actually believe that they can get it, but you need a pile of money. So they know that if they can get some technology, because all these guys, whether it's Putoff or Nolan or Tyler D, all these guys have patents. This is what it's all about. So you're on the leading edge, and you want to cut everybody out, and you're pitching this thing that you believe that you can build a flying saucer, when it's just like, I think I can cure cancer. I think I've got an idea, and we need you to finance the thing. So Ron is saying this is a techno scam, and that's when I start to look at the technology. I look at Firmage. Firmage is trying to levitate this thing 1 inch off the table, and he spent like $90 million or whatever they spent on this thing to levitate something 1 inch off the table. Or if you see Tom DeLonge talk about that layered piece of metal, and he's talking to the podcast guy, and he's saying, we can take the electron that goes slower across there, and we can levitate this thing. And I'm going, hey, if they're talking about levitating a piece of metal off the table, they ain't got nothing. And that's the whole point. I've looked at it for 45 years, and I have not seen any real technology that they may have it really badly hidden. But I see the technology when I look at the portal thing. You see things that make sense. For example, like the little girl, Ron Pandolfi's daughter. She was like 6 years old or 7 years old or whatever when they have a phone conversation with Joe Firmage, and they say, Kashmir, have you got a question for Joe? And she goes, yeah, I do. And she goes on there and says, how many portals do you have in your house? Now, if you got a 7-year-old kid, she's getting this from somewhere. She didn't make this up. And her mother and father are talking about portals, so they're talking to her about portals as well. And this indicates there may be some truth to this. Whereas when it comes to the technology, the anti-gravity stuff, you hear all these stories, but I've dug, I've scratched, and I know all the top people. So I've followed Put-Off for years. A lot of people are just following them. I followed these guys. Eric Davis said they shut down the program in 1989 because they couldn't get anywhere. It's in the Wilson document. They not able to back engineer the stuff. And so people think, oh, they've got all this technology, we're flying to different star systems and stuff. And just my opinion, and I've looked at all the top people, they ain't got nothing. They cannot levitate anything. This is all nonsense. And the only thing they may have is portals. And that's what I put in the book is, and they were going to send, Ron Pandolfi was going to send one of his guys to us when we went in 2017, and Paula Harris got really upset. She said, "You're not going to bring your CIA people here," and but they were interested. They'd heard about the Zendra, and because they were working on this portal thing or investigating it, they wanted to see if they could come and see this Zendra thing that was going on, how the Zendra is compared to the portals. Because the portals are more like things in experiencers talk about. The wall melts and there's this hole opens up in the wall and the aliens come through the hole and stuff like that, those kind of portals. Whereas the Zendra is more like a mist comes off the ground and or it forms like a mist of sort of like a rainbow type thing where the people walk into it, and it's only about a 1/4 inch thick. So I've done a lot of detailed material, and I would be betting on the portal before I'd be betting on the anti-gravity stuff.
Grant Cameron is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We continue on with the chat here. So with the portals and the discovery that these interdimensional beings may be using these to come from other star systems or maybe the future in order to use this, have we been able to figure out, or have you talked to anybody who could figure out either A, when they're going to happen or where they're going to happen, or B, what is causing them to happen, and do we have the current technology to open them up ourselves?
Well, the Mission Rama people will get it through the way they work it is they get it through the antennas where they're told this is going to open, they're going to do a portal, and they don't happen all that often. As to the portal thing with the technology, I believe Ron Pandolfi's wife at one point said there was 2 of them and one was broken, and they have a podcast. I put the transcript of it, but we've actually got the actual audio where they're on a podcast about portals, and this John Sillison guy is on there, and they call what they call actuators. So Dan Smith talks that they're off the coast of Georgia, St. Catharines Island, and he believes there's this actuator sitting on the table, and they're going to take it to New York City. He believes they're taking it to Trump, but I'm not sure that's true. But he said it was sitting on the table, and it looked like a little box with a button on it that was as big as the box, and he picked it up, and Ron says, if I was you, I'd put that back on the table. And then they're in Costa Rica, and John Sillison comes down there, and the story was that John got an actuator out of a portal that was there, and that these actuators do the portal. So there's that story. So you say, well, whatever. So they have this conversation. So this is Ron Pandolfi's wife is running this conversation on the internet, and John Sillison says, John, are you there? She says, I've always wondered about the actuators. Now you got to remember, this is his wife is saying, I'm always wondering about the actuators. Are they man-made things? And John goes, no. Or are they mystical type objects? And then she waits, and she says, oh, John, maybe you didn't hear us, whatever. And he said, I already answered your question. And then the next morning she posts on the internet, and she says, oh, did anybody hear the really significant thing that John said last night? And then I come across, I said, yeah, he said the actuators weren't man-made. And she said, yes. So this is the whole thing. You get this thing where John is on this conversation where I would pick it up. Nobody else even knows what they're talking about, where she's saying, are they man-made? And she's basically referring, there are these actuators. And John says, no, they're not man-made. And the story was that he had gotten these actuators, and he's the guy, that's what Ron said. The next time John goes to the desert, and there's always a story that the portal was in the desert. And apparently Dan Smith was offered 3 times. So I actually asked the question to Dan. I said, Dan, you had the opportunity to go 3 times to the portal, and you turned it down every time. And she said, no, I don't think that's really true. And then the princess, Ron Pandolfi's wife, says, yeah, that is true. And again, you get a confirmation. There is this portal, and Dan got scared, and 3 times he turned down the chance to go through this portal. So I sat and I talked to one of Ron. I don't really deal with Ron directly, ever. I always have this joke that I stay one step removed from my victim. I always stay distant, but I talk to people who are talking to them, and I said to the one guy, I said, I don't know about this portal stuff. This is nonsense. Ron, he just rhymes and riddles, and he's trying to deceive people, and he doesn't make any sense or whatever. And, he's not talking direct or whatever. He's always talking to somebody else. I said, I don't know about this portal stuff. I'm just going to give this up. I can't, I'm wasting time here. Or should I stick around? Do you think there's something to this? And there's a long pause. And he goes, yeah, you might want to stick around. I go, holy shit. So I stuck around, and I think there may be something. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think there's something to this. And that comes down to quantum physics. There is no time. There is no space. It's all one thing. That's how they come through time and space. It's all one thing. We're thinking they're coming across these millions of miles of space, whatever. It's all one. It's the idea of the particle where, it sends a message across time and space. You can be on the other side of the thing. If you change the spin of one particle, the other one immediately changes. It's the whole idea. There may be no time and space. There is no future. There is no past. It's all here. It's all now. It's this quantum physics or the Eastern philosophy thing. And if you understand it's all one thing, then you can move from one place to another because you're not going anywhere. It's all the same thing. It's all one place in space. There is no time and space. And that's where we've got all these false impressions of how the world works. And that's when you start talking to experiencers, they start telling you this kind of stuff. No, there's no time and space. They don't have physical bodies. They come in, they take on a physical body, but they don't have physical bodies. And you start hearing this stuff and you start putting it together, and it's a totally different world than what we think. We think it's nuts and bolts, and they're aliens, and they're coming in here and they're going to rape the women and eat us and all this kind of stuff. And we go to the fear thing. But when you talk to the experiences, you start getting this stuff that starts to match with the quantum physics thing that, that they just pop in from one place to another, and they're more interdimensional than they are extraterrestrial, and that we can do the same thing, but we just don't understand how the rules of the universe work. We just have totally messed up what we think is actually going on. We're living in what one person called the hallucinatory reality. We think we're in real reality, and people who have near-death experiences or who have stuff like that come back and say, or, the high-dose psychedelics will come back and say, you're living in the dream. I was in the real world. That is more real than the real world. And people think, they're just making it up. They're like, they're like experiencers. And no, that may be true, that this is the illusion, and the real reality is someplace else. It's all one thing. It's different vibrations, but it's all here and it's all now. There's no time and there's no space.
Grant Cameron is here on Spaced Out Radio tonight. We got about 5.5 minutes before we got to go to break. Nicole is asking, what's on the other side, Grant? Or Jules, pardon me.
Well, it depends who. Yeah, it depends who you're talking to. So, I mean, the early days when this Mission-Rama thing started was 1974, and they started to go through these things, and they would say they would be on Ganymede, which doesn't make any sense because it's got to be in some sort of different reality, because Ganymede off of Jupiter is going to be so cold you're not going to be able to live there, and you would walk onto Ganymede, or you'd go to different places that don't make any sense. But then you ask the experiencers and you say, okay, they're from whatever star system, and they'll say, well, but if you go to that star system, we're really not there. We're in another dimension. And that's when you get this whole idea of different dimensions and different places, or how the beings can come in with, and we just helped publish a book from a guy by the name of Yossi Ronan. I don't know if you had him on, but he's from Israel. And he had this experience in L.A. Where they came into the room, and he can actually go back and actually download stuff. He can go back in his mind to this thing and talk to them and get material. And that's basically what they told him. When we come in, we do not have bodies. We take on whatever body we need. Or if you talk to Sherry Wild, she asked her being, said, "Are you actually an alien?" He said, "No, not really." And that you start asking. So when people are on board the ship, people say, "Well, did it hurt? Did they probe you?" All this kind of stuff. I always ask the question, like, did he have any sex organs? No. Didn't you think that was weird? Did he ever get any older? No, he never got any older. It's like I saw him for 50 years or 70 years or whatever, never got any older. And I'm going like, don't you think that's kind of weird? Do you think that's, or ask them, did you? And I asked a number of them, did you ask him if he was an alien? And they say, yeah, we asked him. And he said, no, not really. Or you wouldn't understand, or stuff like that. And we start to realize that we may have this all totally messed up of what we're actually dealing with. And Jacques Vallée went there years ago and said, this is total nonsense. Or with the Wilson leak, when everybody said, the abduction stuff, this thing was hoax because they're saying there's no abductions. This is total nonsense. Now there's an event, but I went back and we started looking at all the people who would have seen that document. So it was written by Eric Davis. It was sent to NIDS. So you look at the people on the NIDS board and you say, okay, what's their impression of abductions? And you go to Edgar Mitchell, no. Go to Kit Green, no abductions ever. Jacques Vallée, nonsense. And you start to realize not that there's not an event, but what is actually happening in an abduction event. Is it actually an event, or is it maybe a near-death experience? Because there is a correlation, and that Kathy Martin's doing that. The correlation where you get people who have near abductions can't touch electronic equipment, they can't wear watches. The same thing with near-death experience people. They have exactly the same thing. Or people who have abduction experiences, 50% of them come back and they say they can heal people. Near-death experiences, 70% of people who come back say they can heal people. You see these correlations, or you see Terry Lovelace, I did the interview with him. He said, I went inside the craft. It was 10 times the size. No, he said it was way bigger. It was like a football field inside. It was small on the outside. It was the size of a football field. Chris Bledsoe told it was 10 times the size inside as it was outside. And then I'm talking to Ron Johnson. He's in the spirit world with his dead mother. They allow him to go in the spirit world with his dead mother. And he goes into a building. And he said, I'm in the building. My mother's showing me this building where I'm going to go after I die. And it's 10 times the size inside as it is outside. And I go, that's exactly what the UFO people. So is he having an abduction experience and being on a ship, or is this all one thing? Are we misinterpreting what's actually going on here? And you get these correlations all the time of these weird synchronicities across platforms. And that's why I did the contact modalities. And I say it's all the same thing. It's all different vibrations, and people are getting into the field in different ways, and they're parsing it. They're based upon their religious beliefs or their scientific beliefs. They're putting a spin on what they think is going on. And in the end, it's going to be all the same thing. There's only sort of one thing. There's no time. There's no space. We're making all sorts of false assumptions. Consciousness is primary. It's not nuts and bolts. Consciousness makes nuts and bolts. Not nuts and bolts makes consciousness. We've got it all totally messed up. And that's what I think. That's why I don't think we really have anything. Because people will say, Don Schmidt will say, they haven't got the start button. That's why I agree with that. Because we don't have the basic premise that I've got 50 people who have flown the flying saucer. They all say you do it with your mind, and you've got to be able to turn it on with your mind. You've got to be able to program it with your mind and stuff like that. So you can have the craft, you can have the body, you can know nothing because you haven't got the consciousness to turn it on. So that's where I'm going. I think it's completely different than what people think it is. It's going to be, 1,000 times more complex, way more spiritual, a lot less physical, and have no capitalism. That's sort of where I come down on it. But you got to talk to the experiencers, and you got to listen to them as to what they're being told.
Grant Cameron is with us tonight on Spaced Out Radio. And Grant, you'll be happy to know you are now the record holder for live listeners on our live YouTube feed. 213.
There you go.
213.
Oh, there you go.
You just broke Ronald Moorhead's record. You just broke Ronald Moorhead's record from just a few days ago. So that actually happened pretty darn quick. Didn't expect that, but here we are. Record holder Grant Cameron on Spaced Out Radio. We have them for another 30 minutes on this show. When we come back, we'll talk more UFOs, see wherever Grant is heading. And I've got a good question for Grant that I want to ask him. I do. I'm going to save it for the final 30 minutes, and then we get into the SOR Newswire and the Thought of the Day. Stay tuned. Hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio comes up next. One second here, Grant. All right, I'm just going to quickly run my dogs outside, Grant. I'll be right back, okay?
That people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Hi there, this is the paranormal lawyer Michael W. Hall. I'd like to invite you to listen in each Sunday night where we're going to open up your eyes to everything strange and paranormal. I will be hosting some great guests with topics that affect us all, such as UFOs, ghosts, and everything paranormal. Let's learn together on Spaced Out Radio Sunday with myself, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer at spacedoutradio.com.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month. And follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be
All right, Grant, I'm back. Are you there?
Yep.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
outside. There's nothing flying around here.
Nothing here either because it's cloudy. We're supposed to get snow tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm not happy about that, but that means...
Yeah, and you're going to get probably lots of it, not just a little bit.
No, this one's supposed to melt pretty quick, but it's going to make a bunch of my firewood wet. Tried to get as much of it as possible done today, but
Do you have a furnace, or you just burn firewood?
Both.
Oh, okay.
But the firewood saves me a ton of money on heating
No
costs.
kidding. Yeah. And you got a furnace, a wood furnace as well?
Nope.
Just a fireplace?
I got the fireplace and the furnace, so, which is good.
Yeah.
That way we don't freeze. But
Yeah, no kidding.
yeah, because it can get pretty heavy down there. That's for sure. You know, well,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah,
what cold is. You're colder than I am.
Yeah, I was surprised you get 30, 40 below, stuff like that. I thought Winnipeg was one place that got it, but it hasn't been cold here. I think last year I was fighting with people. I don't think it went to 30 below here.
Yeah, we had about a week of it. We had about a week of it.
No, we're getting to be like the banana belt here. It's like global warming. We're gonna start growing bananas here,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
we're supposed to be the coldest major city in the world, but not even can't even be close now.
Right. Right.
Oh, it's maybe 2 or 3 above.
Yeah. What is it here right now? It's pretty mild here right now. What's the right now? It's not bad. It's 2 Celsius, which is about 36 Fahrenheit. So it's not too bad. It's still shorts weather. I haven't put socks on yet. So.
Oh, is that right? Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm okay with that. All right. Thank you to everyone once again. Grendel, Big Dog, Cat Chaser, Gorgeous Jules, Awesome Kimberly, Major Lee, Carl for the super chats tonight. Here we go with hour number 3 here, guys.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I'm Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. Remember, you can check out all of our archives for free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Oh, Clam, I know you're going to make me butcher it. Edulcorate. Edulcorate? I don't know if I pronounced that right, but the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we introduce Grant Cameron, and he is one of the top writers and researchers and authors when it comes to everything UFO, weird, and strange. His latest book that he has out is called The Portals and UFOs of Mount Shasta, one of his dozens of books that can be found on Amazon. Grant, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back.
Anytime. You know we love having you here. We'll probably have you here once again right before the end of the year to see what 2021 is going to bring for us. So mark your calendar in December, because I'm going to come on my knees crawling once again.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I love it. You got a good show. It's like
Thank you.
It's one of the long shows. It's like the coast to coast of Canada, where you can sit back for a couple of hours. And you got a lot of good guests on, so you're doing a good job.
Thank you. Anytime I get to hear that from my mentor, I just kind of get a little sheepish and, want to hide. I do.
That's true.
I'll just take my microphone under my desk now. Anyways, Grant, one of the questions that I want to ask, and it's a little bit different, okay? But the one thing that I want to talk about is research. And usually when we have you on, you come in, you're very, methodical in what you want to say, and the knowledge that you have gained since the previous time you were on the show. Usually you have another book that's been pumped out and everything like that. But one thing that I appreciate about your research, and this is why I admire your work so much, is you're very diverse. And what I mean by that is that when you open a door in this strange and weird field, you always go to the end as far as you can go. Yet there are so many researchers out there, it doesn't matter whether it's UFOs, Bigfoot, Dogman, ghosts, whatever it may be, who have already made a prior opinion of what the phenomena is. And I think that closes a lot of doors that aren't being opened. And there's a lot of brilliant people in this field doing research that do that. Why do you keep so many doors open at the same time?
Well, I think it goes back. I tell the story of people get specialized, or people. So if you take the UFO field, if you're a psychologist, then people are going to describe it in terms of Freudian psychology, the penis and the breast, the different shapes and stuff like that. And I remember this was happening, but one of the things that I had was, when I started university, I was working at the faculty club lounge, which was one of the most inspiring jobs I ever had, because I was trained by a guy who had 2 PhDs. He was just leaving, his Chinese guy, and I was taking his job, and he trained me. And the first thing he said to me, he says, I need to tell you a rule. He says, do not let these guys intimidate you. So you're talking presidents, vice presidents, deans, full professors, all these, people in there all the time. And he said, when they've had one too many beers, they're just like any other drunk on the street. And what I learned from that job was that was true. They were just ordinary people. But what I learned, I was never intimidated by PhDs, because I realized that a PhD is, and we used to call it piled higher and deeper, that you get a bachelor's degree and you didn't really want to go get a job. So you would sit there and then you say, well, okay, I'll get a master's degree and then I'll get more money. Then you get a master's degree and nobody wants you because they don't want to pay for a master's degree. And then you go like, what the hell am I going to do now? So then you figure, oh, wow, what am I going to, I'll take a PhD and then I can teach it. And it's this cycle that a lot of PhDs, what happens is you get very specialized. So not only do you not know everything, you like if you're doing biochemistry and then you do your dissertation on one small aspect of chemistry or whatever it is, biological chemistry, and you end up in a situation where you know a heck of a lot about very little. And I realized that people were specialized, and the same thing happens in the UFO field, where people are working on one particular thing and they get vested in that one thing, when in fact you've got to be able to be interdepartmental. And that's what I realized. Like, I'm working on psychedelics now, where you get people who are like, pharmacologists, or, pharmacy guys who are, doing tests or whatever. And they get into this routine where they're so specialized that they cannot see anything else except for that one thing. They're going to use this for therapy or whatever. And so I've known that you got to go across the spectrum. It's got to be interdepartmental, that if you get somebody who's like a physicist or a mathematician, they don't know anything about anything else, so they're going to read the entire story, whatever they're investigating, based upon that one thing, because that's all they know. And so I always think you got to stay interdepartmental, and I've always sort of allowed myself to go wherever the evidence leads me. And that's sort of like, a lot of people say, well, what the hell is he doing now? Like, he's off on another tangent, but a lot of things, like I've had these two, I explained already tonight, I've had these 2 incidents where I got messages from aliens. And the one came from Chris Bledsoe, and the only reason I listened to it because it was coming from him. And that's when they drag you in, and they this thing about Neil Young, who grew up in Winnipeg, and I had no background in music whatsoever, none. I had no interest. The radio talk guy, never listened to music, couldn't have cared less. And suddenly I'm writing a book on music. And it was just, I led myself. I realized that this was weird, that there was a synchronicity of Neil Young being involved in this thing with, musicians getting downloads and being interested in UFOs and stuff. And so I just went there. And so I've let sort of the wait for instruction. And I do believe that happens, that you get synchronicities. And if you don't get all hung up on your ego and self, you will be given direction as to where to go next and what to happen. And even my books, like I'll start on a book. I've got maybe 7 or 8 books all going at the same time. And the one I was going to put out was the alien documents. I said, it's my next book. And then suddenly this thing with psilocybin came up. And I started working on this, and then I go, wow. And so that's my next book. And it just moved in there. and I don't keep very strict rules on what I'm doing. It's whatever happens during that day. Like what majority of my day I spend walking around listening to a podcast. I have my headphone on and I walk around, and I just wait for like an inspiration. It sort of tells me, okay, you got to put this down, go put this in this book. I hear this. And that's what I do. I just wait for a direction as to where to go. So I'm all over the map. But I think I've gotten to a point where I may not know a lot about a very specific subject, but I can do, or I can see all the aspects. Where I tell the funny story. I had a guy who was, I used to be lived right at university, so I had students, and I had the one guy who was a PhD in civil engineering, and I saw him. He went to the University of Wyoming. I went to see him there one time. I was going to California, and I stopped and I said to him, Menglin, I said, "What's wrong with your tap here? I'm trying to get a glass of water." He said, "Oh, turn the shut off on underneath the tap." So I go underneath and stuff comes pouring out, and I go, "What are you doing? Why don't you put a washer in this stupid thing?" He says, "I don't know how to do that." I said, "You got a civil engineering degree, a PhD. You can't fix a tap." And that's the problem. I realized that by working in this bar is that people, because you've got a PhD degree, does not mean you know how to change a diaper, fix your car, or do anything. They literally don't. They are just really good at one particular thing. And when everything else comes down, they're totally stupid. So I would have situations where I would talk to I had one conversation with the dean of engineering, not dean of education, who told me about his Sasquatch sighting. He came to me, and then I had the head of human ecology, the dean of human ecology. We talk UFOs all the time. And then I had the guy from plant science, and that's when I sort of caught on. He used to argue with me all the time. And he's arguing, and then one day I said, "What are you arguing with me for? You're dean of plant science. You know about roses. You know nothing about UFOs." And he goes, "Yeah, you're right." And that's what I realized. Just because somebody's got, and people, you see it in the UFO community, people are intimidated by people with PhDs. They'll, if the guy can be totally against UFOs, but you'll bring him to a conference because you can say, "Oh, we're getting respectable people and they're talking about it," and the guy's putting the whole thing down. But people, we almost like we're the Rodney Dangerfield. That's like this whole thing with the politician. Everybody thinks they're the Rodney Dangerfield, and they don't want to talk about UFOs because they're embarrassed. People will laugh at them or whatever. And so we bring in people who aren't qualified to talk about UFOs just because they got a master's degree or a PhD degree, instead of talking to experiencers who probably don't have master's or PhD degrees, but who have actually dealt with the phenomena, the intelligence behind the phenomena. I think that's the mistake we made. But I learned it in this bar thing. It was the best thing I ever learned in my life, because there's no way a PhD will ever intimidate me, because I know we used to have the joke. And there's a caretaker, because I ran all the cleaning staff and the rink staff and all this other stuff. And the one guy has to play a joke. He would say to these people, he'd say, "Good morning, doctor." He'd address every professor. And most of them today, especially today, are master's degrees people. They're not PhDs. They're just masters because they're like 1/3 the price. And he said, nobody ever said, "Oh, I'm not a doctor." They just say, "Oh, good morning." And the guy have a master's degree. He's just an instructor, and he would say good morning, and he would call everybody doctor. And that was the thing. Everybody wanted to be cool. Everybody wanted to be a doctor. But you got to be I think this is a thing where you've got to have an interdisciplinary attitude to what's going on, because you never know where it's going to fall. And if you get stuck in one little aspect of saying this is all mathematical, or it's all chemistry, it's all this, or it's all that, then you get stuck in the thing where you're not really listening anymore as to what's going on and what the evidence is.
Couple questions coming from our audience here for you, Grant, as we only got about 10 minutes to go here. Joe is asking, Grant, have you been back to the Stanton Friedman archives lately? Anything interesting?
No, but I've and anybody wants, they can contact. I'm now giving people access to the files. So I've got them on a OneDrive, and I can actually give people, and I say to people, okay, here's access to the files. You can go through the files. If you see something interesting, let me know. Because of the COVID, New Brunswick is one of the most tightest provinces. I think they only had 1.2 deaths and 200 cases or something like that. I think they've got a little bit of a thing going on now, but they had nobody, because you couldn't go in the province, you couldn't come out. So it's shut down. And probably will not open until there's a vaccine. So I'll go back and get more files when it comes, but I will give people access to the files, because I had the 6,000 pages I got the first time, and I basically didn't read it. I just don't have time. It's interesting, but So I'm giving people access that they want, and they can look at the files, and people will tell me, but all the people that I've given access, really nobody's come to me and said, oh, there's this really interesting document. Did you see this one? And so I'm getting people to help me research, but I will go back and get, I don't know, with the hundreds of thousands of pages or whatever, because I enjoy doing that kind of stuff. And I will put them on the internet so people can access them.
All right. Gary is asking, all the way from the UK. Good morning, Gary. He is asking, Mr. Cameron, how do our spaceships fly in outer space with no atmosphere, in your opinion?
Well, they're just using propulsion. So you're just using a force against gravity. So you're always going to have a gravity that you're pushing against. So that's what they're doing. You get going, and once you're in there, the farther you're away, the less the gravity affects you. But that's what they're doing. So you can use whatever propulsions you want. But I don't think the UFOs are using that thing. They're coming in through portals. Or this Ronan guy, the way he said the beings left the room was that they all got in a circle, and they started to walk around in a circle holding hands, and they went faster and faster and faster and faster. And all of a sudden they started to turn like translucent, and they turned into light. And then the light got smaller, smaller, smaller until it was a little tiny ball, and the light went out. So that's what I believe is happening. Or when they come through, the wall melts out, and the being comes through the wall and stuff. They're popping in and popping out. That's the word that Kit Green was using with Jim Penniston. They're popping in and they're popping out. They're not flying in here. They appear, and that's what you see. Chris Bledsoe, when he had his experience, he goes to the top of the hill when they're fishing, and he says there's just two objects in the sky, and then he said it was like a zipper opened the sky, and the third one came out. So they pop in, they pop out, and I don't think they're doing anything. That's the theory. Wow, the one I saw, and people will see them, they just sort of go, and they look like they go into a portal. They just sort of disappear, but they're not doing anything. They're not picking anybody up. They're not picking up beer or whatever. They're just sort of flying, and they want you to see them. They just appear in your field of vision, and they disappear. And they really don't seem to be doing anything, but they're coming in and they're coming out. They're not really, flying in the way people think they're flying in. At least I don't think they are. I think it's more of a popping in and popping out, that they can move from one place, almost like if they got a formula, they change the one part of the equation, which is the location, and they can basically move from one place to another just by changing the formula in however they're doing it. And they understand it's all one thing. That's my belief. It's all one thing. There's no the time and space thing is what's throwing us off.
What do you think of Elon Musk's latest comment on Twitter saying, "I've seen no evidence of an advanced civilization visiting Earth. Fuzzy pics that are worse than a 7-Eleven security cam frame grab don't count"?
Well, that happens in ufology. It happens everywhere, that people get stuck in, they make a statement. And you see this in this latest TTSA, the whole fight, is you make a statement and you make a comment, and then suddenly it looks like you're wrong, and nobody wants to back off. You're just going to go. And that's what I said. You can only do your own research. You can never convince anybody of anything. And I use the example of Stanton Friedman's files. He worked on it for 61 years. And a lot of his files are archives of his debates with people like Oberg and Menzel and Klass and all this sort of stuff, and he never convinced a single guy of anything. Everybody walked back farther into their corners. So he spent 61 years arguing with people, and he never convinced anybody. And nobody ever convinced him of anything. And that's what happens, is people get stuck in these ideas, and then because of ego, they never back off their idea, and you get people fighting about stuff like the TTSA films or whatever you want to talk about. People make a statement, they stand up too soon, make a statement, and then once somebody says you're wrong, admit you're wrong, nobody backs off. Everybody just digs in. So Musk is in a position where he's old school, and you're never going to convince these guys. You would have thought that with the New York Times article, all the skeptics would have said, okay, you've got us. Randy would have given over the $1 million prize. Nothing. Nobody's changed anything. None of the skeptics have moved off their position.
No, I understand that. But, I mean, this is a guy who has also a lot to lose if this technology were to come out.
Yeah, but he's protecting his own technology. That's the whole thing. So it's that's what I said. It all comes down to money. So if you're, it's the same as the Bigelow tells a story about rockets, that he's buying his rockets from the Russians. And they say, well, why would you buy your rockets from the Russians? Because the Americans shut down all the nuclear missiles and stuff. And he said, well, you don't realize how this works. You don't bring new rockets in, or you don't bring old reused rockets in. And he said, well, what do they do with the rockets that the Americans have? He said, take the bulldozers and drive over them. Because if you're the rocket industry, you're not going to allow secondhand rockets on there because you're not going to sell any rockets. So everybody's protecting their little vested interest, and everybody's, even if you know it's wrong, you're not there to do the right thing. You're there to make money for the stockholders. And so everybody's in their own little thing, and you're protecting your little niche. And his niche is like putting things on Mars with ordinary technology, and he's protecting his vested interest in the technology he's got. Same as Bigelow is building he's back to, doing rocket stuff because there's no money in UFOs. He went there, he got cured with, the curiosity he has, and now he's back to making money. That's what it's always about. And so whatever your little industry is, you're going to protect it, even though you're wrong, because you're there to, make money.
You don't think it's naive, considering he has a security clearance for a lot of this stuff?
Well, but that comes down to, do they have any security? Does anybody with a security clearance have anything? The one book I was going to do, the Alien Document book, which is eventually going to come out, where I talk about John Alexander putting these 20 guys with top secret SCI clearances that the Russians had dropped, according to Valet, had dropped a rumor that they had crashed flying saucer material, and they didn't know what to do with it. They dropped that rumor in Washington, and of course everybody scrambled to get on the bandwagon with, what are we going to do? And all the people assembled, and John had 20 people with top secret SCI clearances, and I've got the notes. I've got Oak Shannon's notes from that thing, and they knew nothing. There was these conversations going on. They knew nothing. And these were the top guys from all over the place. So we're making the assumptions that he's getting material from the group, and if people have it, it's going to be a very, very small group of people who know what's going on. So there's material, there's gun camera footage that's going somewhere, but the number of people, so if he's got a security clearance, it's the old idea. What do you have a security clearance for? It's a need to know. Just because you got a top security clearance doesn't mean you know everything. You only know what you need to know for whatever little job you're doing. Otherwise, you don't have a need to know. So people are assuming that, there's all these people who know stuff. And what I see is, I don't think there's really anybody that maybe Hal Puthoff knows a little bit more than anybody else, but most people, I don't think, really know anything. They just have they have a top secret security clearance, and the Senate doesn't know. That's why I did that's why I gave up on the presidents. I'd go to all the presidential archives, and there was no documents. And it came down to the fact that no, the president's not involved. That's why there's no documents there. Just because he's got this high security clearance, he's cut out of the loop, and a lot of people are cut out of the loop. And because it's a need to know thing, you don't need, or Wilson, or from the Joint Chiefs of Staff, you don't have a need to know. I don't care if you're the head of intelligence or Joint Chiefs of Staff. This has nothing to do with you. You don't need to know. Get lost. And he has, he thought he had the highest security clearance there was for everything. Or Mellon tells the same story. Chris Mellon, I had the security clearance for everything, and they bypassed me too. So it's the idea that just because somebody may have a security clearance or work for the government doesn't mean they know anything. I mean, my father worked for the government. He didn't know. He was a pilot for the Department of Transport. He didn't know what was going on. I was at the university. I had keys to 5,000 rooms. I had keys to the president, the vice president's offices. I had everything. And I always tell people, you think you know what's going on because you've got the keys and you're there. Why would I leave 6 months before they had a buyout? If I knew what was going on, I wouldn't have left 6 months before. I had no idea what was going on. I just knew my little job, and I had all these keys to go in everybody's office. I didn't know what was going on at the university. I just knew my little job, and that's what people have, is they know their little job or their little security clearance area. And we assume that because they're big names that they know everything. It's the same thing as the PhDs. The PhD does not know anything. He knows one little aspect of one little thing, and basically they're stupid about everything else. They have no idea how to do anything.
Grant, it's that time to say goodnight to you. So we've got about 40 seconds left. Tell everybody where they can find your books and your information, because we'll have you back on and we'll get you rescheduled for late December as well.
Yeah, okay. Well, Presidential UFO is my White House UFO is my YouTube channel where I put all my interviews that I'm doing with Nicole and Sinead and people. And my Facebook site is the Presidential UFO Facebook site, and the Amazon, I guess, is where you get the books. I don't really follow the books, but Amazon would be where you get the books.
We love you, Grant. Thank you so much for being a mentor and one of the best interviews. A new record holder here. New record holder on the YouTube channel.
There you go. That's a Thanksgiving. That's Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Exactly. A good friend of this show, Grant Cameron. We'll get him booked for December as well. And we will come back on the SOR Newswire with the SOR Newswire and the Thought of the Dave. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. Grant Cameron, everybody. Grant Cameron. Grant, thank you so much, man.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
We'll talk again next month or December, whenever it is. Okay, let me know.
I will, buddy. Take care. Good night.
Okay, bye.
Love him. Absolutely love him. Hero and mentor right there. Hero and mentor. Hey, Rich Hilke, how you doing? Nick, how you doing? Now, I know we got a lot of new people here who have maybe tuned in for the first time, and thank you so much. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the show. 213 people. We hit a new record tonight. We're at 113 likes. Appreciate each and every one of you for coming on in and hanging out with us. And I hope we did enough to warrant you hitting that red button for subscribe. Let's do that, if you don't mind. We got another 30 minutes of the show. We got some weird news coming up. Weird news. Yes. My head is killing me. Oh, I need a haircut. Look at this mop right now. It is nicely shampooed and conditioned. I will say that. Oh, but I'm carrying too much hair. My head is like starting to hurt. There we go. That feels a little better. Excuse me. Later, Game Vet. Thanks for coming on in. Do. My hair is getting longer. Hey, Desert Rat. Yeah, Steve crashed the website. Desert Rat. Absolutely, he did crash the website, but we weren't on the YouTube platform at that point with Steve. So I do got to bring Steve back. I absolutely love the guy. Hey, please save the bees. How are you? Yes, healthy looking hair. Very manageable right now. Very manageable. But yes, Steve Ishdahl broke my website. That was friggin' awesome when that happened. That was like 8 minutes into the show and my website crashed. And but we will bring him. Okay, so I'm trying to go to one of his website links from his Facebook page, and Facebook sends up a warning saying the site violates Facebook. I've had that happen as well. Grant Cameron is being tracked on Facebook. Totally. All right. What else we got here? Oh, let's see here. Oh, yes. Do. All right. Where are we? Close that out. We've got about 90 seconds. 90 seconds. Yeah, I'm going to try and sneak in a haircut tomorrow. I'm not going to touch the length because I'm growing this out. But my hair gets like real heavy. Real heavy. Hey, newcomers to our chat room. I hope you're having a fun time and hope you come back and join the rest of the crowd here again, because we are here every Monday through Friday on Spaced Out Radio. Same time, each and every night. We're always scheduled. We're always here. I don't take sick days. Oh, Dale, you haven't cut your hair since 99? I need a picture of that, man. I need a picture of that high-quality mane. You could be competing with Joe in California. Thanks, Dee. Appreciate that. All right, final commercial here, everyone. Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate that. Here we go, everyone. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Somehow I think we'll make it in safe. I'm your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. I want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We got a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram @Spaced Out Radio Show. Oh, yeah. Speaking of the news, guess what it's time for? The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and lots of UFO news. I'm kind of surprised by this. You don't have to be an alien truther to be curious about recent UAP events. The United States Navy recently admitted, indeed, strange behaving objects caught on video by jet pilots over the years are genuine. Yeah, they are eyewitness accounts, not only from pilots, but radar operators and technicians, too. And recently observed UAPs purportedly have accelerations that range from almost 100 Gs to thousands of Gs, far higher than any human pilot could survive. There's no visible air disturbance, they don't produce sonic booms, and these other oddities have been capturing the attention of "I told you so, they're here" from UFO believers. But there's also a rising call for this phenomena to be studied scientifically, even using satellites to be on the lookout for possible UAP events. Philip Alaris is a project controller at the European Space Agency's Space Research and Technology Center in the Netherlands. He's also the primary force behind the Unidentified Aerospace Phenomena Observation Reporting Scheme, a project to facilitate and collect all UAP reports from both amateur and professional astronomers. There's a need for scientific study of UAPs and a requirement to assemble reliable evidence, something that could not be so easily ignored by science. It is necessary to bring scientists objective and high-quality data, Alaris said. No one knows where and when a UAP can potentially appear, hence the difficulty of scientific research in this domain. Maybe we need to get this guy on, Corrance, the booking guy. Recently, we have seen rapid advances in information and communication technologies. For example, open tools and software, cloud computing, and artificial intelligence with machine and deep learning, Alaris said. These tools offer scientists new possibilities to collect, store, manipulate, and transmit data. Alaris points out to another potential tool. The location over our heads of satellites is the perfect chance to potentially detect something. No kidding. Thanks for the observation. Working in the Space Center, it occurred to Alaris that Earth observation civilian satellites could be used to search for UAPs. One avenue is tapping into free-of-charge imagery collected by the European Union's Copernicus satellites, an Earth-observing program coordinated and managed by the European Commission in partnership with ESA. Also, there are more and more Earth-scanning spacecraft being launched to take the pulse of our globe. Such work is no longer limited to major countries or powers. Private actors have also entered the plane viewing scene. This evolution will stimulate forward thinking of ideas across different domains, including controversial topics like UFO research. Working with Alaris to employ satellite imagery to detect and monitor UAPs is Kevin Knuth, a former scientist with NASA's Ames Research Center in California's Silicon Valley. He is now an associate professor of physics at the University of Albany in New York. We are looking into using satellites to monitor the region of ocean south of Catalina Island where the 2004 Nimitz encounters occurred. Knuth, by the way, is part of the UAP expedition team. We do have to say that. The UAPX team includes military veterans and physicists as well as research scientists and trained observers that will use specialized gear to observe what could be UFOs. We are hoping to detect UAPs, determine their characteristics, flight patterns, and any patterns in activity that will allow us to study them more effectively. These guys need to really, really deal with Science Bob and this Skyhub crew. That's my opinion. Come on, sweet Stevie, get a hold of these guys. Anyways, in August, they helped organize a NASA-sponsored interdisciplinary workshop called TechnoClimbs 2020 that sought out to prioritize and guide future theoretical and observational studies of non-radio technosignatures, that is, observational manifestations of technology, particularly those detected through astronomical or other means. Yes, they are looking for UFOs, in other words. So where is this all going? Well, guess what? We don't know. We don't know. Ravi Koparkapu literally says, I know I butchered his name, Koparapu. There it is. He says, there's a fundamental problem that we have right now to scientifically study UAPs. We do not have proper data collection of this phenomena that can be shared among interested scientists to verify claims and filter out unexplainable events. Also, the entire UAP topic has been much maligned by associated with ETs. Well, who the hell is flying the damn things? You got to have aliens to fly these UFOs. Let's get out of the UAP BS. Let's get back to UFOs. Anyways, Koparapu, he's a pretty smart guy. He says, I think people immediately think about aliens when they hear UFOs, UAPs, and I want scientists to not fall for that. Why not? There is a possibility. There is a possibility. Oh, then he says, being strictly agnostic and don't let preconceived ideas cloud judgments. Have an open mind. You can't say be strictly agnostic and don't let preconceived ideas cloud judgments and then say have an open mind. This guy's talking out of both sides of his mouth. Okay? Consider this a science problem. If it turns out to be mundane, so be it. Dude, think about it. If it's not from this planet, something or someone has to be flying it. If so, from where? Why are we continuing to go down this road? If it's aliens, it's aliens. Sure, you could try and separate with all the scientific data you want. All right? But if you got aliens, you got aliens. It's just the way it is. Just the way it is. All right, let's move on to my good buddy, Harry Reid. The former Senate Majority Leader says the U.S. government has been hiding key details about UFO encounters from the public for years. Reid made the claim in the newly released documentary The Phenomena, directed by James Fox, which examines the history of UFO sightings in the U.S. from the 1940s all the way up to this spring's revelation regarding a Department of Defense probe into unexplained military sightings. Why the federal government all these years has covered up, put the brakes on, and everything stopped it, I think is very bad for our country, Reid says in the film. No kidding, Harry. Where were you publicly talking about this topic when you were in government? You were quiet. You may have been talking behind the scenes, brother, okay? But you were not talking to the media. You were not bringing this topic out. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth because you don't have your seat anymore, and you're trying to remain relevant. Why the federal government is doing this? Hey, Harry, you're one of them. You were one of them. Why are you doing this? When asked if he's saying that there's still some evidence that hasn't been publicly disclosed, Reid replies, I'm saying most of it hasn't seen the light of day. What is it, Harry? What are you hiding? What do you know? You were there. You were the one pushing people behind the scenes, allegedly. Okay? What was it? Reid was among the lawmakers behind classified, but since closed Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, otherwise known as ATIP, right? Since leaving office in 2017, he has become increasingly outspoken about UFOs. In April, following the Pentagon's release of the 3 videos taken by U.S. pilots, all right, Reid tweeted, the American people deserve to be informed. How about you open your mouth, Harry? Tell us what you know. What is that Area 51? You said you've been there a number of times. Stop bugging people about little green men, and how about you just tell us the truth? Stop being a politician about this. You aren't sitting in the office. You haven't for 3 years. Reid stands firm, by the way, on his point of view of the phenomenon, telling Fox, nobody has to agree why it's there, but should we at least be spending some money to study all of these phenomena? The answer is yes. The existence of ATIP was first unveiled by the New York Times in 2017. Though the government has said the program, secretly commissioned in 2007, was shuttered due to a lack of funding in 2012. We know that's not true. For more than a decade, the Pentagon... By the way, I'm going to stop this for a second. You notice the reporter never asked Reid, why are you speaking out against this now? Where were you when you were sitting? Look, I know I'm being a little bit mouthy on this right now. I do. All right? But this dude knows the secrets. He knows some of the secrets. All right? But we keep rehashing. I don't care about the Tic Tac. I don't care about the gimbal film. I don't care about Go Fast. In my opinion, they're all real. Okay? If there's more, Harry, where is it? Spill the beans. Spill the beans. Hashtag spill the beans on Twitter at Senator Reid. If he knows, why not say it? Why are you holding back, Harry? You obviously have the information. All right? And now he's going on through the phenomena about the nuclear missiles. Okay? One such incident in 1967, a report in which an object appeared over Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana at the same time as 10 ICBM missiles suddenly became inoperative. Robert Jameson, a retired nuclear missile targeting officer in the Air Force, told of several occasions having to go out and restart the missiles that had been deactivated after UFOs, mysterious glowing red objects in the sky, were sighted nearby. If they had been called upon by the president to launch, they couldn't have done it, Reid says. Okay, Mr. Reid, Senator Reid, you've obviously been sitting on that information for a long time. You've been sitting on it. What else do you know? See, this is where I get pissed off. Okay? This guy's now trying to become, oh, well, we need to disclose. The government needs to disclose. It's hypocritical. Okay? Look, I love what he's doing. I do. I love what he's doing. But stop being hypocritical. Okay? Stop being hypocritical. Speaking of Elon Musk, as I was just talking to Grant Cameron earlier, the truth is out there, and Elon is sure it has nothing to do with aliens. Of course it doesn't, because we're all downplaying aliens now. Come on, Elon. Come on. The SpaceX founder chimed in on the idea of UFO sightings through a couple of tweets this weekend. I have seen no evidence of an advanced civilization visiting Earth. Fuzzy pics that are worse than a 7-Eleven security cam frame grab don't count. Musk was responding to a tweet from Fox television anchor Maria Bartiromo. Bartiromo. She shared a clip in which she asked President Trump why earlier this year the Department of Defense set up a UFO group called the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force. Bartiromo asked whether or not UFOs exist. Trump told the anchor he would have to check on that and would take a good, strong look at it. Musk followed up with a strong piece of anecdotal evidence of UFOs' doubts, saying there are literally 1,000% more cameras than 10 years ago, but still zero clear photos. That's what I've been saying for years. It's no wonder people care about what Musk has to say about aliens and UFOs. He's one of the most prominent space proponents on the planet. Therefore, This was a minor kerfuffle back in July when he cryptically tweeted, "Aliens built the pyramids, obviously." This prompted a response from Egypt inviting him to learn more about the very human effort behind the pyramids. These latest tweets seem to clarify Musk's position on the concepts of aliens on Earth. He might as well just tweet, "Show me the proof." Why not? It's right there. It's right there. A contrite Canadian woman. Canadian? Let me try that again. A contrite Canadian woman who took pieces from the ancient Italian city of Pompeii 15 years ago has returned the fragments with a letter explaining how she brought a curse to her life. The woman who signed the letter with her name Nicole says she visited the archaeological park of Pompeii when she was young and dumb about 15 years ago. She said she took the items from the site where hot rock, volcanic ash, and noxious gas had buried the ancient city and its residents when Mount Vesuvius erupted in year 79. Nicole's letter, which accompanied a package containing 2 mosaic tiles, parts of an amphora, and a piece of ceramics, said she had experienced a string of bad luck since the theft that included 2 bouts with breast cancer. "Please, take them back. They bring bad luck," she wrote. The woman said the package contained everything she took from Pompeii, except for a tile she had given away to a friend. "We are good people, and I don't want to pass this curse on to my family, my children, or myself anymore. Please forgive my careless act that I did years ago." The package was sent to a travel agent in Pompeii with a request that the items be returned to the park. A spokeswoman for the archaeological park said there would have been about 100 previous incidents of tourists sending Pompeii artifacts back to the city, along with apologetic letters noting claims of objects being cursed. The park has established a museum to display the return items and the letters from the apologetic tourists. You know, there's got to be something to this, because it's exactly like Robert the Doll in Florida. All right? Exactly like that. Where Robert, if you don't ask his permission to take a picture, he curses you. And they've got thousands of letters of people asking Robert for forgiveness. That is eerily interesting. On one single day, for reasons that are unknown, more than 1,000 birds crashed into buildings in Philadelphia and fell to their deaths. The blame falls at least partly on the buildings themselves, and the mass death event highlights a widespread problem with the way buildings are being designed and built. Overnight, on October 2nd, between 1,000 and 1,500 birds hit buildings in just a 3.5-block radius. Yeah, apparently the number was far higher than on a typical night. No one could explain why. According to a local Audubon Society volunteer quoted saying about 30 birds will have fatal collisions in this area on a typical day. Why this number suddenly jumped to more than 1,000 is a mystery. That is so weird. Though the abnormally high number of deaths is still shocking, it's only a spike in what is an epidemic of deadly avian architecture collisions. Birds commonly fly into the sides of buildings as reflective surfaces and clear windows can appear as distant trees or clear paths of sky. Researchers estimate that collisions with buildings cause between 100 million and 1 billion bird deaths in the United States alone every year, and they add that most deaths are associated with buildings in the 4 to 11-story range. Most deaths are taller buildings, where reflective surfaces are the primary cause, tend to occur during migration periods. Glass facades, which started being developed in the mid-20th century, remain common in mid to high-rise buildings. Oh, that's so sad. So sad. Let's move on. Now, I don't know if you saw this video out of Utah, where this gentleman, Kyle Burgess, managed to escape a mountain lion trying to get a hold of him as a meal in Slate Canyon near Provo. Well, when Kyle Burgess was on a run about 2 miles up on Slate Canyon this past Saturday, he saw 4 small animals scampering around on the trail ahead. He didn't realize what they were at first. Thinking they were bobcats, it wouldn't be the first time I had seen those. Burgess pulled out his phone and started recording. Seconds later, when their mother came into view, it dawned on him that he was in pretty big trouble. They were mountain lion cubs, and their mother was going to protect them at all costs. The instant the full-grown mountain lion mother charged at him, Burgess's adrenaline fired up. He let out a stream of profanities while he backed away. The cougar dove into the trees along the side of the trail as if to flank him. She reappeared on the trees. Her eyes locked right on him as she followed him as he retreated backwards. What came next was the longest 6 minutes of his life. The 26-year-old said he did everything he could to ward off the mother cougar. He knew not to turn his back to her. He knew to back away, but not too fast. He cursed, yelled, growled, and grunted while she continued to follow him, flashing her teeth at him, her ears pinned back, her tail swishing. Go, 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 Burgess yelled at her for about a minute. Burgess said every time he took his eyes off of her, she tried to stoop down. As he tried to stoop down for a rock to throw at her, the mountain lion lunged at him, hissing. With each pounce, her paws and claws flared. Her powerful hind legs kicked up dust behind the gravel. No, go away. I'm big and scary, he said. She keeps following him. You're good, she says. This guy stayed relatively calm. I give him credit for that. He goes, you're a good little kitty cat, nice and slow, come on. He pleads with her to turn back and go to her babies. It never seemed to end. She lunges at him several more times. Okay, this is when I blink and die, he says. Come on, dude, I don't feel like dying today. But Burgess, who recounted the terrifying encounter to reporters at the mouth of the Slate Canyon, says he got away without a scratch. After those 6 minutes of terror and pure adrenaline, he was finally able to pick up a rock and hurl it at the mountain lion. It hit her, and that's when she took off running back down the trail. Wow, that just happened, recalls Burgess, when she finally took off. Honestly, right now, it still feels like a dream. Now, Burgess, who was almost done with a 10-mile loop when he came across the mountain lion family, had to keep headed towards the Slate Canyon trailhead, or else he'd be facing another 7-mile run back. So he waited about 30 minutes before trying again, this time holding a stick and rock in his hand. At one point, some other hikers came up the trail. When asked him if they'd seen a mountain lion, he laughed at them, or they laughed at him. When he showed them the video of the recording on his phone, they realized he wasn't joking. Now, I want to remind people this, okay, because I'm going to skip the thought of the day. This is important. There's a couple things that he did wrong here. Number one, never go into the forest alone if there's cat activity, especially at this time of year, or bear activity, migration activity. All right, these animals are hungry. You are in their territory. And if you're going in, okay, go in armed with something. All right, whether you have a gun, whether you have pepper spray, bear spray, whatever you want to call it, be prepared. All right, be prepared. This guy was not prepared outside of his cell phone. He could be a dead man right now, but he's not. Thank goodness. This could have been much more tragic than what it was. Thank you to everybody participating today in the news and in our chat rooms. We didn't do a thought of the day today. Real simple reason why. I forgot to post it on Facebook, and I posted it too late on Twitter. So that is my bad. We will do it all again tomorrow. Thank you to Captain Shirk for the wonderful news, and you can find all of our news at spacedoutradio.com. And to my mentor and idol in the UFO field, Grant Cameron, for being a guest on this show. We will definitely be bringing Grant back in December for a year in review and the year to come. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everybody participating in our chat rooms on Spreaker, YouTube, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club at our website, and to all the Snarkers and Snarkats having a good run on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. All of you were absolutely amazing tonight. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, say it with me, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But tomorrow, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, you can do that too, because we kind of like more people around here. Good night.